also access this meeting via WebEx technology. The number for tonight's meeting is 2333-659-6189, and the meeting password is Tuesday. The meeting is being held in person in the school committee room at Central Office at Burlington High School. Members of the public are welcome to attend the in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. The equity statement for the Burlington Public Schools. Educational equity means that every child belongs and receives whatever support they need to develop their full academic, emotional, and social potential to learn and thrive every day. This begins with kindness and valuing the humanity of every child and individual. Let us rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just want to point out that the original posted agenda did not have public participation, but we will have public participation after the discussion of approval of the meeting minutes. The next item on the agenda is approval of the warrant. I would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. That's 5-0-0. Thank you. Next, the approval of the meeting minutes of March 12th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye. That's 5-0-0.
Martha, I would like to abstain.
And I apologize, and one abstention. Okay. So that's 4-1-0. 4-0-1. Sorry. Thank you. All right. Next is public participation. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who is here for public participation? I think I recognize everyone as being here to present, so thank you all for being here. Is there anyone online who has their hand up? Mr. Cuna? I don't see anyone. Okay. So the next, we'll move on to information and reports. And Mr. Shannon, it's lovely to have you here with us tonight for the student report. Thank you.
Great to be back. Hi, everyone. So since my last student report, spring sports have been started and they're underway. I know there's already 3 teams away today scrimmaging. So we're getting ready to get into the season. For the past 2 weeks or so, BHS Italian students hosted their exchange partners. They went to go visit them earlier this year in September, and they were all so nice when they came over. They were all grateful, and I got to meet a few of them and talk with them, and they were really, really nice, and it was really, really nice to see, and the school invited them well. But sadly, today was their last day, so it was a very sad goodbye, lots of tears. Next up, NHG States is around the corner. Students are working hard. I know at the middle school level, they're really pushing it, especially Ms. Sturdivant. Recently, the DevilBots, BHS's robotics team, won the Excellence in Engineering Award, which, from what I know, is the first time they've won this award in 8 years, almost 10 years. They will be moving on to the state competition as well, which is very exciting. I know they have a really good team over there. Quarter 3 is ending soon, so that means that a lot of the seniors are going on internship starting April 8th, and that's pretty much all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you want to share any of your updates? How are things going the end of the year as a senior?
It's tough.
It's tough waiting.
I think we have, seniors have 7 or 6 more school days, so it's just counting those down and then getting ready for all the senior activities. I know Senior Assassin, the game that we play, started yesterday. I was the first one out, which is funny, but I've been helping my friends.
Good.
It's very nice to see, and it's weird how like the competition where you're supposed to get people out brings people together. Because I've been talking to people who I haven't talked to since like elementary school, helping them out, and it's really fun, especially at the end of the year.
That's great to have that kind of an activity. Dr. Conti?
Matt, speaking of elementary school, which one did you attend?
I went to Fox Hill.
The Fox Hill. So we are sort of blessed this evening with some elementary principals and middle school principals. So, Robin, would you look up Matt's file to see if he owes any late fees? Were there
good,
any
yeah.
detentions that were owed from Fox Hill?
Never. Oh,
Okay. So, okay, you lucked out there. Okay, you look back while he's here so we can,
I promise I'm clean. I promise.
all right.
We got you covered anyway.
All right. Any other comments from the members? Okay. So next, does anyone have any subcommittee reports tonight? Mr. Brooks. Good night, Matt.
Just a quick Recreation Committee update. So last night we had a Recreation Commission meeting. They voted to support the Marshall Simons brush field renovation. They're also looking to gain more feedback and get invited to meetings as we push through Fox Hill and work through the outside space.
Good. Are there other committees? Yes, Ms. Massardo?
I attended the Wellness Committee, I think it was last week, with Mrs. Concession and Mrs. Daughtry here at the high school. And Mr. Lyons was there also. There was a few folks. It was a really good discussion. So the mental health department had sent out a follow-up thought exchange to families on the question, I forget the specific question, but was how do you want to get involved and what's the best way to get involved? And we went through, Chrissy presented a bunch of the themes, and we went through some actions that the district can take coming out of those themes. I think the biggest question was like, how do parents and families and the teachers make that shift from the involvement, the hands-on involvement of elementary school, right? I'm going in, I'm reading a book, I'm chaperoning a field trip, to what does that mean through middle school and into high school when maybe your physical presence isn't as needed, but you want to remain involved. So I think there was definitely we brainstormed a bunch of ideas. And so I think they're going to take that back to the teachers and the teams. And obviously parents are still able to contact any one of us or their student's teacher, et cetera, if they have ideas of how to get involved. But I felt like we did get some good feedback. I forget how many. When I took the survey, there was only 20 responses, but I think 300s, right? Yeah. Okay. Few hundreds. So it was a good response rate, in my opinion. So excited to keep working with that committee.
Great. Are there any other subcommittees that have met recently? No? Okay. Thank you. The next, I see, Mr. Moran, that you're on online, on remote. Is there a report from the Ways and Means Committee tonight?
Yeah, we are preparing for the meetings next week with the school committee on Monday and Wednesday. So we'll have our questions lined up. They'll start at 5, and I'm assuming we'll be in the school small committee room. And I will post those meetings with the town clerk tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Are there other announcements tonight that any of the members would like to make? I wanted to announce about the Robotics Club, but Mr. Shannon beat me to it. They're really on a roll this year and doing a great job. So yes, Dr. Conti, announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Rakovich announced that there are some students selected to participate in this year's 6th District Congressional Art Show, and it's sponsored by Congressman Seth Moulton, hosted at Montserrat College of Art. So our participants were Aiko Karam, Dylan Giles, Afsa Khalifa, Renee Lecomte, and Ashley McKinnon. So I want to congratulate our high school art students for participating in Congressman Moulton's District Congressional Art Show. And again, the possibility is to have your art hung in the Capitol for a year. So we'll let everyone know the result.
All right, thank you. Any other announcements? All right. So we'll move now on to learning, equity, and thriving. Dr. Conti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This would be the second reading of the school calendar. You saw the first reading of the calendar that was in your packet. We did have a request to, you were presented a calendar on first reading that did not include Good Friday. Good Friday next year is on April 18th, which happens to be the Friday before April break. And then it was requested that we submit a draft of the calendar with Good Friday as a no school day. So that was the calendar in your packet. So that moves the last day of school to June 18th without snow days, and then we obviously build in 5. So with snow days, then that takes us to potentially June 26th because of the Juneteenth holiday falls within those 5 days. Everything else stays the same.
Okay, is there discussion on this? Ms. Massardo?
So this is the old one, but the move adding Good Friday puts us in the same place as we are this year, where we have Wednesday and then no school and then a half a day at the end of the year, which I think is difficult for folks, and I know people are not a really big fan of that. I just want to call that out.
I'm sorry, I don't.
We have one snow day this year, and it pushes us till after Juneteenth, just basically hanging half day
Yes.
after Juneteenth. So that puts us at risk, obviously, of that same scenario happening next year.
Yes, I either need to call more than one
Yep.
or not
Yep.
any.
Yep.
So
Well,
Ms.
I'll make a
Monaco?
motion to approve, well, I want to comment on it, so I'll make the motion and then
Yeah.
comment.
Well-
I'll make the motion to approve the calendar with Good Friday as a day off.
Okay, do
as
we have a
holiday.
second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion, Ms. Monaco?
Yeah. The reason that I make this motion is the same reason that I made it last year, which is that we have very poor attendance of both staff and students on Good Friday. And it makes it a full school day that basically goes to waste. So I believe that it's in the best interests of the students to have that day as a holiday, especially this year where it's going into the whole vacation. Gives everyone an extra vacation day. And I think that it's such a wasted day. A couple of years ago, we had school on Good Friday, but we had to call it off because we didn't have enough people to cover. And so we had to, at the last minute, call school off. So for that reason, I moved that we have the calendar that has Good Friday as a holiday.
Other comments? Yeah.
Sure. I
Ms.
mean,
Massardo?
I get we all would want every Friday before vacation off. I know I would, but I think it's difficult to do that and still have a secular calendar. I know we got this year for other religious holidays off. So I have a hard time picking and choosing religious holidays to have off. But you know, that's my piece here. Again, I would love to have, I think this, if we plan ahead, that was one of the COVID recovery years where we didn't have a lot of substitutes. So I think I think a lot of the schools did a good job of planning for lower attendance and stuff. And I'm confident that the half a day after Juneteenth this year is going to also be fairly wasted day. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. So I'm not in favor of that day.
Any other comments? No. I'd like to comment that I have been in favor of the secular calendar, so we would not have the Good Friday day off. And the reason for that is that we have members of our community from many different faiths. The Jewish families would like to have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur off. The Muslim families would like to have Eid off. The Hindu families would like to have Diwali and Holi off. And I think what's important is that our district does have policies in place, and there are laws that protect all the teachers and the students who want to take those religious holidays off have the right to do that. So that no one is being prevented from observing their holidays if we have what we're calling a secular calendar with no specific religious holidays off. There's likely more teachers who are Catholic and observe Good Friday than there are Jewish teachers and students who observe Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So the numbers are an issue, but I think that Ms. Massardo is correct that if we plan ahead, if people believe that that's a day they want to take off for their religious observance and they plan ahead, that we can make arrangements for it. So I'm not in favor of the motion that's on the table. All right, so is there any further conversation? We can vote on the motion that's on the table. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye or no?
And
No.
the chair votes no. So that passes 3-2. Okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's good that we have a calendar. I appreciate that.
Yes.
May I move on?
Oh, yes, please, sorry.
Okay, now to the Assistant Superintendent's report. Dr. Chen?
Hi, thank you very much, Dr. Conti. Just wanted to remind folks of 2 exciting upcoming events. One is going to be on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. It's the all-band concert at the Wooden Gym. And then on March 28th at 7 p.m. will be the All-Town Strings concert at the BHS Auditorium. I just wanted to give you a quick update of where we are with our math curriculum review, and then also touch base a little bit on where we're going to begin with our literacy curriculum review. Just really wanted to thank the teachers again who have been sitting on this committee and working with Dr. Kateri Thunder. She actually came on March 11th and 12th, and she has been reviewing all of our data, and she had the opportunity to meet with the principals, opportunity to go to not all the schools, but most of the schools, including BECC, to take a look at our curriculum work also at the pre-K level to get a context about that as well, too. And she's going to be continuing to work with us. We also got to meet with her. Many of us have not met with her face-to-face, but she held the group face-to-face. And again, we broke up into our subcommittees, and one of those subcommittees, just so that you know, is looking at Algebra 1 at the middle school. So that is work that we're continuing to move forward. This is going to be ongoing work. She's going to be coming up with an analysis of where we have strengths in our math curriculum, pre-K through 12, and then providing us with recommendations with our curriculum instruction and assessment. This will be an ongoing process. This is curriculum, as you know, instruction and assessment. It is not a one-time shot. It takes a while. We're going to be looking at our MTSS structure. We're going to be taking a look at our Tier 1 instruction. We're going to be taking a look at our tiered interventions, our assessments. We're going to be building capacity and professional development. And she was also able to walk into the classes also of our English language learners, in which math is being taught there, and also at the same time with our language-based programs that we have here in the middle school and elementary school. So we're going to get a very nice review of what she's seen, the data, and our recommendations. That report is going to be coming in late June, early July, and it's going to be shared with the school committee. It's going to be made public, okay? At the same time, just wanted to clarify a couple of things. I know I really haven't been talking a lot about literacy thus far because we wouldn't, yes.
Excuse me, if I could just ask for a clarification on when you discussed described the work that's being done on the math curriculum. You used the term Tier 1 instruction, and I'm not sure everyone knows. If you could give us like a 3-sentence, what do we mean when we say Tier 1 instruction?
Well, what I mean by Tier 1 instruction is all the instruction that all students should have. And so it is just taking a look at, that is the foundation that all students need to have. And so one of the things that she wants to do, and it's part of our, before you can go to universal design of learning, you have to have understanding by design. And what that means is that you need to identify all of the key power standards from pre-K through 12. Because you can't teach everything, but what you can do is you can select those standards that are going to have the biggest impact, that it's going to progress not only horizontally, but vertically across. And so that's work that, you know, we're going to be taking a look at. We're going to be taking a look at the textbooks that we use. So no stone, is going to be, everything's going to be looked at, because we really need to do a deep dive. That's comparable.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. That's very comparable to what we're doing with literacy as well, too. Have not talked that much about it because we've been really focused on one subject area at this point in time, but it doesn't mean that we're not beginning with our literacy work. And in fact, you guys were all sent something by Dr. Conti, and it's going to be in the warrant article as well, too. About the work that we've hired Dr. Gail Lovett to do. Dr. Gail Lovett is also someone that has worked in the Massachusetts schools. She is a researcher and a university professor at the University of Virginia. She's well-versed in the science of reading. She has also been she is presently a reading specialist, so she's a practitioner as well, too. And she's also worked with English language learners. And so her fit to the work that we want to take a look at here is it's a really great fit. And that being said, she's actually coming, just so that you know, and spending about 5 days with us from April 22nd to April 26th, and going to be doing a deep dive of looking at our classrooms at the elementary, middle school, and high school level, taking a look at what we do with our literacy curriculum when it means reading, writing, grammar. I've had conversations already with the reading specialist about this. The principals are also aware of this. And so she and also Kateri have been looking at our data, our iReady scores, our MCAS scores, you name it. They've been looking at it. And so she's also going to be taking a look at the context and really just be walking around in the classrooms, observing at what's going on. And that particular review that she's also doing is going to be presented to all of us, okay? It's going to be made public. It's going to be presented to everyone in July, and those are also going to be the recommendations about, again, what are we doing very powerfully here at our literacy program, and what are some areas that we need to improve upon. And that means also taking a look at our core curriculum, right? And so if we need to make changes, we need to adapt something, she's also going to make suggestions. So again, this is something that I think is really important for us to take a look at. And that work in literacy, the deeper work in literacy, is actually going to begin in 2024 and 2025, but it's going to begin with a curriculum review, because you need to know the areas that you're good in and the areas you need to grow in before you start moving forward. There needs to be a very, very very strategic plan of action. And that being said, I also want to answer a question that I've heard from folks about something that we said about in the journey of CARES. Originally, we were going to do the reading specialist. We were talking to them about maybe doing some letters training and making it maybe for all teachers. But really, in the end, we decided, what's really important, first of all, is to go through this review, take a look at this review and look at the recommendations before deciding on any major program or any type of kind of little professional development. So I think there was some miscommunication or some of folks thinking that the letters is part of the tiered instruction. What we were wanting to do is discuss the possibility of training reading specialists for 2024-2025 school year, just to give them a bigger umbrella for differentiating the instruction. But again, very excited about this literacy audit that's going to be happening. And again, because curriculum is not just a one-year thing, very similar to what's going on in math, this is going to be about 3 to 4 years, and we're going to be taking a look at everything, because the goal is to ensure that all of our students have, only the best learning experience possible.
Thank you. Are there questions on this, Ms. Monaco?
This is, the literacy angle is very important to me,
Yeah.
and I'm really very impatient. I don't want to wait 3 or 4 years to have reading programs in general ed that are now only in special ed. There are some kids that need programs other than what we are usually using in gen ed, and they don't need to become special ed in order to get the programs, in my opinion. And specifically, just one comment I wanted to question, specifically, which elementary schools currently have language-based programs?
I want to
Like a district language-based program?
Well, it was part of the conversation that we had language-based programs in the elementary schools, and I don't think that that's the case.
I'm not sure if we have a district language-based program. We have a reading, sort of a literacy framework. I'm not sure where was it referred to?
And what I just said. And so if I made a mistake in what I called it, and I apologize for that, it was at the middle school, we have a program that is, that Kateri Thunder went in to take a look at. And it's a special education program.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then, but I do want to answer your question, Ms. Monaco, okay? So that next year, we're continuing on with putting some things that we have identified. And so there's going to be still, we're taking a look through Landmark, for instance, training that can be provided both for our reading specialist and our special education. And when I talk about like a 3-year plan, because curriculum, instruction, and assessment is very complex, we're not waiting like 3 years to adopt something. I want to be very clear about that, okay? It's the many different stages that are involved when you're taking a look at curriculum, when you're taking a look at revamping and revising your MTSS system. And so that's what I mean by 3 years. It's the initiation of it, it's the implementation of it, and it's the monitoring and the progressing of it. So we're not waiting for 3 years to adopt a program. I want to be very clear about that.
Okay,
But,
appreciate it.
but we have to at least analyze our data, develop a plan, and then move forward towards that plan.
Thanks.
Okay, any further questions? Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dr. Chen, so just want to pull on that thread a little bit. Are we baselining our performance levels now and then using that to move towards another program of instruction, different means of instruction, getting towards the gen ed classroom, moving forward with this plan?
So
Dr.
basically what this plan is going to do is we're going to be taking a look at everything. And when I mean like at everything, we're taking a look at the curriculum that we presently have in the elementary schools, what we're doing in the middle school, and also what we're doing at the high school. We're taking a look at all of the student data. That means like who are the students, for instance, from an equity lens, who are accessing the like honors classes, at the high school level, because the transition moves upward. We're taking a look at our growth data, be it iReady, be it Symphony. We're taking a look at all of that. And then from all of that, we're going to be able to draw some conclusions on that report, and that conclusions are going to help us. And then there are also some times in which, through those classroom observations that, for instance, Kateri's going to be doing, and I know that Gail's going to be meeting with teachers and talking to them too. Kateri did the same thing too. They're going to pull a report. It's going to be based on qualitative data and quantitative data from that report, right? And then so they're going to take a look at it, and they're going to be able to say, based on what I've seen, an outside perspective, we know that what we've been doing has either been working, growing to an extent, or not making the types of growth that we need. And then from there, they're going to be able to analyze, okay, well, what has been working with the curriculum? What has been showing the growth, right? And then making recommendations.
Thanks. And just one quick follow-up to that. So
Yes.
the concerns I've heard from parents are, at the elementary level, how we're implementing this and, baselining children's performance. So when they get between the second and third grade level, and some of the kids get lost with the dyslexia screener is the challenge I've heard and a concern that I've heard from more than one parent. So if you could just address that a little as well.
Again, if you don't mind, Dr. Chen, jumping in, we'd have to look at the individual case. So we're screening kids 3 times a year, so I'm not sure anyone's being lost. I think if parents have a concern, they should certainly talk to their teacher and the principals who are here. I think we have good information on all kids, and the report here is to look at all kids. If it's about accessing certain programs or training to address growth, I think we would sort of need to look at that. But I think parents are involved in those conversations if there's a problem. So again, it's hard to answer the question as generally, but if the feedback is parents want more communication or more feedback, or if they have questions, I think they should make sure those questions are being asked. I'm not, again, so it's hard. I can't say this is exactly what the challenge is with particular kids. So we'd have to see sort of.
Sure, I'm not referencing specific cases.
Yeah.
Just, again, the concern was that as they get through the first 2 years of assessment, when it transitions to iReady, all the kids are basically pushed out of the screener that would identify dyslexia traits, and then iReady isn't as, how do I want to say that, isn't as good at picking up kids if they're not identified early.
Yeah, and again, we do use other screening tools, so I think there are people who are much better versed at this than I am, so I'm afraid to say something because I'm sure people are listening, but we should be able to address parent needs, and again, I do think we have lots of good information on students and their growth, but if there's a concern, again, I think that we have resources to address those concerns, is what I would ask the parents to let us know, contact us.
And Mr. Brooks, is that effective? Ms. Monaco?
Not to give you a hard time, but along with what Jeremy just said, don't we have a responsibility, and how do we address it, to screen every child for dyslexia?
We do and we are.
Okay, we do and we are. Well, there are some kids with dyslexia that are not being picked up.
According to whom?
Me.
Okay.
And I know one in particular.
Okay.
Actually, 2 in particular.
Okay.
And what's happening then is that the standard reading program does not address their needs. So I just want everyone to be aware that, like, this whole discussion from this side
Yeah.
of the room is based on some children, parents telling us, and some children that I just happen to know, need different instruction in reading. And I'm glad you're doing all this, and you got the consultant, and that's great. And I guess, and maybe Jeremy also, we're just sort of chomping at the bit to make it happen.
Understand that. And if you're saying that we're limiting access to certain programs, I would say I don't believe that's the case, but the parents should certainly have conversations with their teachers in schools. We should be able to provide with the resources we have. Any of the interventions that you've mentioned before, we're getting people trained in all of the named programs, and what we're interested in is growth. And if we're not seeing growth, or the parent is seeing growth or having concerns, they should have conversations. We have lots of expertise in our buildings, and we'll try to address it.
Okay.
Is what I would say. But we know our kids very well, I believe, and I think we look at the data from certainly this office more holistically, so I can understand if individual parents have a concern. I'm not going to be able to answer that individual concern, but we have the data, and again, we're seeing decent growth. Again, maybe not with every individual kid, but we have, I'm sure, experts who know all those learners as individuals, and so parents should contact their school. So that's what I'd say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. And then, so is there more to your update and report?
No, there
Thank you,
isn't.
Dr. Chen, for that. Yes.
So this is the topic now. I'm going to ask you to we have to change companies right now, so we're going to take ourselves away from a school board, a school committee, and we're going to sort of enter into the insurance field here for a minute, and I had to learn some new things. I sort of relied on...
Maybe we could specify what we're talking about.
We're talking about, on the agenda, the
yeah,
collaborative care model.
in schools. Okay,
So
thank
that's
you.
what we're talking about. Ms. Concession, would you mind coming up and joining us since you're a part of this conversation? I also relied on a resource that I thought knew both worlds very well. So a former school committee member, Mike Desimone, is online. He's going to be joining us. And Mr. Desimone also does this type of insurance himself. He wasn't connected to the initial proposal, but I asked him lots of dumb questions and asked him about the sort of the district's role, the risk to the district. This is about, I believe, and Mr. Desimone can sort of give you a much better explanation. It's about using private insurance that families have to access services that students need in school. And it's sort of a new direction, and it allows us to bring some resources here that we may not necessarily need to pay for, but we just coordinate. So, Mike, are you on the call?
I am here.
Yes. Welcome, Mr. DeSimone.
So you're on the other side of the table, which you're probably very happy about that, but could you do a, again, just a very brief explanation of what a community care model is, and that it's more prevalent outside of Massachusetts than in Massachusetts, and I had a lot of reservations at first, and you sort of put them to rest, and I'm sure the committee will have some concerns as well, but again, just a very sort of brief explanation.
Sure, I can provide a high level, although Ms. Concession is very adept and knows her stuff really well, which is helpful to you guys. Collaborative care is a fairly new initiative. Think of it when you go to a doctor has to bill an insurance company. There's specific codes to, whether you go in for a well visit, a sick visit, or whatnot. Because of the shortage of mental health professionals across the country, a few years ago, an initiative was established called Collaborative Care. It allows a family practitioner or a PCP to have clinicians that practice in the mental and behavioral health areas to practice under them, and allows them to bill these codes. So what is happening across the country is school departments are getting involved because children need services. And it's a way for children to get the services that they need without the cost being passed onto the school system, because you're actually referring them into the insurance, into the insurance company in the insurance world. Eric asked lots of good questions about people's insurance coverage, whether somebody, you may have folks on Mass Health, you may have folks that maybe don't have insurance. Those are all questions that we talked about around the model. Like Ms. Concession, you may have some, be able to go through some of that. But the model itself is a model that is being practiced with the main objective to get kids the care that they need when they need it.
My sort of foundational question to Mike was, does the district have any risk in this financially? And Mike, you sort of reassured me that there's really no risk to the district?
Correct. I mean, there's no financial risk in the sense that you're referring a child to a clinician. Again, there's certain forms will have to be signed and all that from a consent perspective, which will also limit the risk associated with the school department itself. So the financial burden gets passed on to the clinician themselves and the insurance company, and then through consent waivers, it should minimize the school district's risk as well.
So before we get to the pilot that we want to present to you all, are there any questions about the model itself? Because it was something I was very unfamiliar with that I had to learn about.
Is there anyone who would like to ask questions? Or,
Okay.
Ms. Bond? No, I was just going to say, I think the document you sent was pretty clear, to me anyway, and I think it makes a lot of sense.
I just wanted to note that I do a lot of this in my day job. So I work a lot with care collaboration, value-based care. I work on the software side, but I'm pretty familiar with the model, and I think it's a model that where the country's moving towards, families are moving towards. Care does not only happen in one setting, and the more we can broaden that care, the more people have access to it. And we have some of this care is happening probably in our schools now. This formalizes a lot more. It helps the parents be able to access it. So I think I'm really happy to see this happen, and I'm happy to help answer questions too.
Awesome, thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I didn't mean to exclude you as a resource, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Are there other questions at this stage? Okay. Dr. Conti, did you want to continue?
I just, Chrissy, do you want to, we have sort of a pilot that we've discussed, and do you want to maybe, again, the school committee sort of has it, but you want to maybe just discuss it quickly, and then, this is sort of a discussion vote, because I wasn't really sure if I needed a vote, but I wanted to ask sort of to get your feelings on this, maybe through a vote, is sort of what I wanted to do. So,
Good evening.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'll do the best that I can. I'm also learning as we go with this model, but we were honored to be approached by the Family Practice Group, which is a pediatric doctor's office in Arlington, Massachusetts, the Behavioral Health Workforce Institute, and Accelerate for the Future Foundation, to work to implement a collaborative care model in Burlington Public Schools as a pilot. As you heard, collaborative care is an evidence-based behavioral health model that really helps to bring supports and incorporate lots of different areas. So rather than families, parents, and guardians having siloed supports with school, outpatient providers, pediatrics, psychiatry, this would help loop everyone in and working collaboratively together to help meet students' needs as effectively as possible. So what they are proposing is to pilot a collaborative care model. We would be working with those agencies. They would be hiring a care manager who would be a bachelor's or master's level clinician, not necessarily independently licensed. They'd also be hiring a licensed independent clinical social worker. There would be a consulting psychiatrist that would be on staff, as well as a nurse practitioner who would be hired and be part of the family group practice in Arlington. The care manager and the behavioral health clinician would be staffed through the Brookline Center for Mental Health, but would be residing in Burlington Public Schools. So although not our staff members, would be here on a daily basis and would be the ones servicing the students and the families that we refer to them. We've also talked a lot, and the Brookline Center and Accelerate for the Future are committed to trying to work to get us clinicians that are bilingual in either Spanish and Portuguese, as we have a need in that area to make sure that we're having equitable services for all of our students. And myself and the new director of family engagement would be working as the point people to help pilot the program and make sure we monitor referrals, students that are involved, and ensure that it goes smoothly.
And again, I'm sorry, I was zoned out for a minute. We were doing this, starting this at the high school, is that?
We're going to start this at the high school, yes.
So is sort of what we sort of wanted to try. So again, I wanted to introduce everyone to the collaborative care model. I'm not quite sure I need your approval, but wanted to ask that you sort of, if anyone had any real reservations, again, we have an expert on the committee, a former committee member. Please ask the questions now, and we sort of, again, we want to pilot it. We'll come back to you to give you an update on how it's working, but I think it's a way that we have a high demand, and I think it'd be a creative way for us to meet some of that demand outside of just providing the resources in-house.
Are there other
I
comment?
move
Yes.
that we support the pilot of the collaborative care at Burlington High School.
I will second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, just a quick question. So we're talking about referrals and family. What's the parent involvement in the referrals? And then the only other question I really have is, we talk about housing the practitioners in buildings. How are we planning to do that in our space constrained environments? So your memorial schools, Fox Hills, Pine Glens of the world, as the program grows, or if it grows from the pilot, right?
Dr. Conti?
Space needs of the future, again, I don't know the answers to that. We have a space identified at the high school to move people into for the pilot, so that's as far as I've sort of looked at space. And certainly I hope we have a space problem in the future, because that'll mean it's been successful, but I don't have an answer to that yet. Parent involvement, I think parents are key to the involvement in this model. They would just be working with the site coordinator, is that?
Yeah, so my understanding is after the referral is made by a Burlington Public Schools employee, they would most likely then meet with the nurse practitioner as the next step, who would review the model with them, talk about the billing, the insurance, what the model consists of. They would sign consent. They would then sign consent for other providers to be able to speak with each other. But the parents are really integral part in this system as well, because one of the aspects of the care manager is to not only help students who maybe need those referrals, but also to help students who already have existing, and Ms. Massardo, correct me if I'm wrong, but have existing providers in different areas to help bring that care more cohesively together, because I think as parents and guardians, trying to manage all of that can be very difficult. So one of the main roles for the care manager is to help coordinate care more effectively.
I just think the example would be like, it would probably, it's happening now that these students are being referred for services. They say to the parent, I believe your child needs XYZ service. And right now we say, go to Arlington and have it. So now we would say, okay, we have one in school. Here's the openings. Believe the goal is to increase access, right? Now the parent has to call around, you have openings, how long's your waiting list? Whereas they would coordinate that here. And then occasionally they may be seeing multiple services, right? So we'll provide one here, and then that care manager would then be the one calling and coordinating with any other services that they're having not in the school. But the consent model would be similar, I imagine, to if they're under 18, it would be the parent would have to consent.
Okay, any further questions? Yes, Ms. Monaco?
Maybe it's just me, but it seems like we're voting very quickly. Like, do we really need to vote this tonight?
I don't know if you need to vote it
Vote it
tonight.
at all.
I'm not sure if you need to vote it at all. Again, this is sort of a pilot. I think that we'd like to try it. I think it's really driven by parent consent. We're not hiring the individuals, we're providing space.
Is there a cost to the district?
I don't believe there's a cost to the district.
There's no cost to the district.
Okay. Okay, I'll support it. It sounds like a good idea. It just seems like it's awfully fast.
Again, when I was learning about it, I asked a lot of the same questions, because I'm used to saying, okay, if we need to provide a service, then sort of we have to create it, provide it, design it. And it seems strange to allow access to our students to family. We're essentially just saying the kids are here where it's almost convenient, and we're providing access is essentially, it seems like what we're doing. And it's the parents' insurance that is driving the care, and many of the parents are seeking these services outside of the school district already, as Ms. Massardo and Mr. DeSimone and Chrissy have said. So
Is this during the school day?
it could be during the school day.
Take away from their time in class?
Many of them might not be in class already. This would be a service that we would need to get them back into class. So this might be a more convenient way of having them in school more and in class more. So, again, I think we are seeing increased challenges of mental health. I think we have higher demand than we can meet all the time, and this is just a way of expanding again, that care. And I think, to Mr. Brooks's sort of point, maybe, the way I'm interpreting your point is I actually think it involves parents more in the coordination of the care because they're a critical partner in this. We're not saying your child needs some mental health support and trusting the parent to do it. The parent is actually coming in and being a part of it, or else it's not happening if they're not giving consent. So I think it's there's almost more involvement from my perspective, or more coordination from my perspective. And again, Mike, you're saying this works in other states pretty well, if he's still there?
Mr. DeSimone, are
Yeah,
you still?
I mean, essentially, it is a patient-centered care team. I don't know if it was this concession that was stating your care coordinator. They're driving a lot of the coordination with all the different clinicians, and it's really focused on the patient. The objective here is to identify somebody who needs care, and to allow them to get the care quickly. When you're dealing with behavioral and mental health, 30, 60, 90-day wait times, you may have missed the boat. And it's important to get in there and get in there early.
Thanks, Mike. Ms. Bowles? Yeah, I was just gonna, he stole my thunder. I was just gonna say that it's a proven model in other places. So I mean, even though it's new to us, I agree with him that if you make students or people who need help wait too long, it could be too late for some.
Ms. Massardo?
Just to get a tiny bit wonky here, like the idea of care coordination and this care manager, care coordinator is definitely the direction U.S. healthcare is going. Like CMS, ONC, we're post-COVID, they're allowing for a lot more billing of these type of services, understanding that the time you spend in the physician isn't the only care that you need. So the insurance, like this case manager can get paid through the insurance for simply the coordination of care between providers. You see it in diabetes care, any sort of chronic medical illness. We're seeing a lot more of these care managers pop up and make sure people do the care, right? Like, are you taking your medication? This is a great example. Is this what they need to get back into school, right? So like that's an added person in that medical care. It's not just the physician. That care manager is often really important, the one going between the teachers and the parents and where these would be nurse practitioners. But it's just like a value-added service that now insurance is able to pay for, and it's definitely a model that's gaining traction.
Mr. Brooks?
Just a couple follow-up questions as we had the discussion. So no cost to district for that. That's great. How are we adhering to HIPAA and privacy, and is there additional IT infrastructure requirements we're going to have to meet? And then, Dr. Conti, for you, if this pilot is successful, what's your implementation, or what is your vision for implementation and kind of schedule do you think that might follow if this becomes a bigger, program?
So, Dr. Conti, do you want to answer the second half, or Ms. McCassion answer the first half, maybe?
I asked a lot about FERPA and HIPAA. So the consent for the program will cover both for us, the FERPA and HIPAA compliance requirements, because program participants and their legal guardians will receive consent prior to communication and workflows. There will be I'm going to do my best. There's going to be a documentation and record keeping software program associated with this. That software program is going to be held and run through the nurse practitioner and the care manager, through the family practice group's electronic health records. They're going to utilize Mira, which is an online collaborative care platform, and patient registry to track and enroll students' progress. Parents will be informed of this. This is also where they're going to be doing some of their data-based measurings, whether universal screening. We will be requesting consent for a Burlington public employee to also have access to the Mira, most likely me, to make sure that we are tracking students that are involved in the program as well, in the pilot.
Yeah, I think my question was more centered around data storage here and, leakage. So it sounds like it's all going to be hosted off-site.
Off-site, yes.
Okay, and Dr. Conti?
Again, I think if it proves successful, it would depend on the caseload of the coordinator and whether we need a second coordinator. And again, I think the idea would be to expand as needed. If it's proving effective, high demand, I think we would come back here and talk to you all about it and I really don't know what to expect. So like I said, I'm out of my area of expertise and comfort. I think that I've been sort of reassured and that this is the direction that we need to head. And I'm sort of willing to give it a shot.
Ms. Monaco?
One last question. It's a pilot program, so when does it start and when does it end? And I would assume that after the completion of a certain point in time, that we'd have this discussion again.
Absolutely. So I think with your approval or with your consent to move forward, we will work with Brookline Mental Health Center to identify a care manager and a clinical behavioral health clinician. I'm assuming they either have someone on staff or they will have to post. Our goal is to have that person, those people identified by August so that they can undergo their training, which I would also participate in, just so that there's a real comprehensive understanding from the school system perspective. And then we would start in September. I would be happy to come back whenever you would like me to come back to give you an update on the pilot mid-year or whenever feels most comfortable for an update. But the goal would be to start with being able to refer BHS students in September.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. I have a slightly different question. I know you and I've talked a lot about we have a real strong relationship with the Burlington Youth and Family Services. And it seems to me that this would meet a need that we haven't been able to meet with the resources in this district and at the Youth and Family Services. And if you could just talk a little about that, that would be great.
So I think we have a lovely relationship with Burlington Youth and Family Services, and we have worked hard to even expand some of that. I think the last time I was here, we talked about that this year they were piloting on servicing younger students. They generally start at age 9. They also are usually have a pretty long waiting list by November. A lot of their services are conducted because they have a large group of interns, second-year master's level interns who are fantastic, but they are there generally August through May, so there is a little bit of a turnover rate. So they run into a very similar situation that we run into here in the school systems by November. They're pretty much at capacity, especially in the afternoons, evening hours. And we've worked, they do come into the schools. They sometimes offer sessions here for students. The other area where Dr. Chen and I have been very focused on when we've had several meetings with all of the partners at the table, has been really trying to expand the option for bilingual mental health providers in the school, whether the care manager and hopefully both the care manager and the clinician. So we've been very open about that being a hopeful priority when hiring for these through the Brookline Center for Mental Health, in the ability to service those populations of students as well.
Great. Thank you. I mean, I know that the Youth and Family Services does run out of capacity mid-year, and it sounds like the school district, we've added social workers, we've added mental health counselors, and we still have needs that aren't being met. And this is, I'm in favor of this. I think it sounds like this is a way that we can use private insurance to add services that will be actually even more coordinated. So I am in favor of this, and thank you for all the work I know you must have done, as well as Dr. Conti and whoever else was involved with it. I think it is real different from the way we've modeled schools usually, but I think in the past we've also sometimes used insurance for services in other areas. I don't know if it's physical therapy or such, but there are times when the school district does access insurance to provide services that we otherwise would not be able to afford to provide, or possibly to allow us to do it without additional cost. So this sounds real good. So we have a request for a vote from Dr. Conti. Is there someone who would?
It has been moved
we've
and
already. I thought we had. Okay. So so we have a motion that's been seconded. Okay. So any further conversation? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And the chair votes aye, that's 500. And thank you to everyone who has put this project together, and I think it will be helpful. Thank you.
See, thanks. Mike, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Good to see you all.
Thanks a lot. Yep. All right. So that was, we are now going to move on to facilities and finance. And the next topic is our transportation bid update. And is that, Ms. Kasha, are you going to report for us on that?
Yes.
Thank you.
So we had our bid opening on Friday, February 23rd. We had 2 responses, which was good that we had competition. And one, the 2 vendors, one was North Reading Transportation, or NRT, which is the same owner as Trombley, who our current contract is with. And the other was North Suburban Transportation. NRT came in the lowest, although they were fairly close, which is nice to see that the competition was sort of valid there. So at this time, we've just issued an intent to award because where we went out for a 5-year contract, any contracts over 3 years need to be approved by town meeting. We did the same process for the current contract that we're in. So we just need to add a general article for May town meeting, for town meeting to approve the length of the contract.
Okay.
And that was in your backup, the
Yep.
language. in the
So we have
explanation.
a school transportation contract term approval backup. So this is not to get any funding from town meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to repeat. This is because the school district is only authorized to enter into 3-year contracts. And in order to get a better cost price, we went out to bid for 5-year contract with the bus company, and I believe we've done that for a few times already. And so thus, we are going to go to town meeting in May, if this goes through, to ask for the authorization to enter into a 5-year contract. So is that accurate, Ms. Kasha?
Yes.
Yeah. And in terms of the actual transportation contract, is that something, and I understand that's part of our general operating budget that we are in the middle of discussing in public. Is that going to be discussed separately in our budget discussions? Or will that just be, will that be subsumed under the operating budget discussion and vote?
So all of the pricing under the new contract that we just opened the bids for have been incorporated into the budget document that you have.
Okay, so we don't need to have a separate vote on the contract because we did this in a legal process where we had bids and competition, and we accepted the lower bid, and so now that is the line item for transportation in our budget that we're in the middle of discussing for next year. Is that
Yes.
right? Good. Okay. So I think we need a motion to approve the school transportation contract term approval.
So moved.
Second.
And we did have some backup material, which I believe will go to the town meeting as well. Is that right? And we're proposing a general article called Approval of Contract Term. And it says to see if the town will vote pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30B, 12B, to approve the school committee to enter into a 5-year school bus transportation contract or to act in any other manner in relation thereto. And we are going to send this on through the process, through the select board to be placed on the warrant with this vote tonight. Any questions before we vote? Mr. Brooks.
Just one quick question. So when the contract came back, they were able to meet our statement of work and didn't take exception to any of our contingencies that we added?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Good point. Yes, Ms. Monaco.
There are a lot of parents that have not been happy with this particular bus company, so I'm expecting all of us to have a lot of phone calls. We obviously don't have a choice. We have to accept the low bidder.
We have to accept the lowest responsive bidder. So as long as they met all of the terms that we advertised in our invitation for bids,
And in your opinion, they have?
Yes.
And can you go over what contingencies are new in this contract?
The conditions that were,
So when you guys had approved the invitation for bid, like the specs that we put forward, so we did work in some additional things, like monetary penalties for buses being late and things of that nature.
And the app,
And
yeah.
yeah, we've included.
Where's My
tracking
Bus
also.
app, yeah.
And every parent will be able to track his or her child's whereabouts by tracking the bus?
Yes, there's a
Yes.
there's a
Yeah.
software.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And did we settle on the age of the buses? There was some discussion about that.
Yeah,
I think we said no,
It's okay.
no
Off the
older
top of
than
my head.
7. It's what we voted on.
It was what we
yeah.
voted on, right? It
Yeah.
didn't change.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually disappointed we didn't have more bids because I know after was it 5 years ago that we did this? So was that a 5-year contract?
yes,
And so we did the same thing. We went to town meeting to get it approved.
that's correct.
So I just know a lot of people weren't very happy, and I'm kind of disappointed we didn't have a, broader spectrum of bids to look at, but so be it. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, in this this area too was actually considered reasonable competition.
Reasonable competition.
A lot of districts only receive one. So.
The bus company that we had before, are they gone? Do they no longer exist? Yes. And that's too bad. All right, thanks.
okay. Any further conversation? So the motion is to move this warrant article forward. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye. That's 500. Thank you. And now, Dr. Conti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Fox Hill Building Committee update. Again, most of you were at the last Fox Hill Building Committee meeting that we had. We starting to look at the sort of outside the building and the, I guess, the pickup and drop-off models that they were showing. And I think there were a lot of sort of subcommittee meetings on the exterior and transportation, and I think those were incorporated into it. I also believe, sort of in the last few weeks, the Danisco team has gone back to Fox Hill. I'm looking at David for a nod, and gone through some of the adjacencies and classroom placements, and fine-tuned some of the, I guess, what the classroom design features, and then the drop-off and pickup. So again, I think they said they would start to have some renderings moving forward. I think the planning board has been involved. Bob from the, and also I'm looking at Ms. Massardo, I think looking at some of the exterior features. And there was some talk of having now another community meeting. So I'm going to blank on the date with that. So
We're going to go back to the drawing board on the date because we had originally looked at the 23rd of April because there's no school committee meeting that week, but there's a reason there's no school committee is because that's Passover. So we're going back to the drawing board on a date for the community meeting.
okay. Is there anything else I'm missing on Fox Hill? We had a presentation by Ways and Means
That was it. That was what I was just going to say.
at our last building committee meeting, and I think that they're considering Ways and Means. The select board are considering some different options, but it seems like we are still on track for a September town meeting presentation. So we won't be presenting the Fox Hill School this May. We just won't be ready for it. And there needs to be another MSBA board vote between now and our presentation to town meeting.
Okay, Ms. Massardo, is that everything? I also, the next meeting of the school building committee for Fox Hill is April 8th at 6 o'clock, is my understanding. Is that
I
correct?
think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Oh, Bob?
okay.
And I just
Doc-
wanted to
yes,
add,
go ahead.
through the chair, I just
Yes,
wanted to add
Bob.
that on April 4th, we have a presentation and an update scheduled for the planning board meeting. So,
Good. All right, Dr. Conti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. BHS Building Committee update. Again, Ms. Bond as the chair. I think we were introduced to our designer, Tape, and they went over the project timelines, and they established a website for communication. And other than that, I think we're going to immerse ourselves in that program, sort of the program description document that you all know sort of drives everything else. And to be honest, I haven't really put a whole lot of time into that yet, but I'm planning on in the next few weeks really getting into the high school program. And then, at some point we'll have conversations about other community programming and things like that we've discussed at that meeting. So, Ms. Bond, I don't want to shortchange the high school design, but we're just starting again with the designer, and so I think they indicated they're going to be spending time, Bob, in the building, a lot of time in the building over April break, and really getting a baseline as to what currently exists and what the options are in terms of using the existing building and existing site. And it's going to be good to have some concrete, no pun intended, information
Plenty of that.
for us to make, I think, better decisions about the future of sort of the high school experience in Burlington.
Right, and you and
Ms.
Mr.
Bond?
Kuna, thank you through the chair, did share a lot of good information about the solar panels and all kinds of things like that, which I think they found very interesting, maybe some cost savings in the future. And then also the only other thing was I didn't notice that the website's been connected to the high school yet. I didn't see it or couldn't find it. So I don't know if that's been added yet or not.
We can check.
And then, and just the next meeting is March 14th at 6:30. So other than that,
April 14th?
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, wrong date.
Okay.
April 14th.
Yeah. All right. Any further comments on the high school building committee? Seeing none, Dr. Conti?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just an update briefly on the Pine Glen and some other projects is Mr. Kuna went to capital budget, and actually we could have said this under subcommittee, and presented all the warrant articles to capital budget. So the Pine Glen air conditioning project was presented to capital budget. Bob, you answered a lot of their questions about heat pumps and electricity. Again, I couldn't answer them, so I'm glad Bob handled that well. But again, we're moving forward with again, you've all seen the warrants, and with the warrant, and that this project is on that, and I think that would be the immediate need. And the fencing at Pine Glen would also be something that we're looking to address.
Mr. Kuna, did you have anything you want to add to that?
no, I think now's a good time to just reference the fact that we're going to discuss warrant articles in a few minutes.
Okay.
So we'll have plenty of
So
time
we don't need
talk
to go
about
into
those.
that?
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Ms. Monaco?
Did extra mulch happen to get to Pine Glen? I understand they did mulch, but it wasn't enough, and that the after-school program was having trouble using the playground. Mr. Lyons?
So I can comment on that through the chair.
Mr. Kuna?
Yeah, so the rec department did go out and assess the situation at both Pine Glen and Fox Hill. Last week on Thursday, mulch was delivered to Marshall Simon, so we have excess mulch available. They did go out and spread and deliver the mulch to both schools. So again, to meet the needs, yes, mulch was delivered, but we do have excess. As we know, once we step on the mulch and kids go out and play, we're going to kick it around a little bit. So we do have some excess mulch available to us.
So my understanding is that the after-school program was cited for not having a safe playground. And that in order to be a safe playground, it needs to be 12 inches of mulch. And I don't think, unless it's happened since I last heard, I don't think they got the 12 inches of mulch. So would you follow up on that and,
Yeah, I will follow up on that, just to comment on that too. So it's a very large playground, 12 inches needs to be in the fall zones. So again, as a child falls down a slide or even underneath a swing, they kick some of that mulch away. That's where we need the compactness of the 12 inches,
Right.
Around the edges and the walking zones. 12 inches is considered maybe a little bit excessive, but still does get moved out of the way as well too. So we do need to make sure that maintenance is happening on these playgrounds to spread that mulch back more frequently.
Thank you for taking care of that. That's great. Ms. Bond?
If we just go back, the next high school meeting is April 11th at 6:30.
April 11th, okay. And Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, just wanted to pull on the thread for capital budget. Were they presented with the 20-year capital plan that has been worked on for review and kind of submission, comment, any of that stuff?
At that meeting, they were not presented with that. That's kind of a first meeting with us where they specifically wanted to look just at the warrant articles. I think as discussed that the long-term capital plan is something that we're working on to present. I'm sure the timeline is closer than I expect it to be, but soon. Also too that Mr. Denizio from the town is working on the 10-year capital plan. So once we incorporate those documents, we'll have more info to share. But we're not there yet, and I don't have that information available.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get a draft in front of the capital budget, because I know they're chomping at the bit to get a hold of that and then provide comment.
Okay, so we'll follow up on that. Okay. Did someone else have their hand up? Okay. All right. It's time for our budget session and all the people waiting in the audience. Thank you for coming. Dr. Conti?
Thank
Oh,
you.
you know what, actually, I did want to say, this question came up this week again, and I just want to repeat that we are discussing what we call the superintendent's budget. It's public. It's available online for people to see. This is a public budget discussion that the school committee, as the elected officials, will make a final decision on. The budget as presented was all of the requests from all of the different cost centers, the different building principals, the directors, the departments, and all the things that we would like to have to provide the best possible education for our students. This budget did come in. The town has asked us to keep to a 4.5% increase this year. We call that the guideline. And this budget that we are looking at right now is now over 9% increase from last year. We know that. We know that we don't have 9% more money to spend on next year's budget. But we want to have that conversation in public, to be transparent. Sometimes we call it the sausage making. But we want people to understand that the budget that it's after, and we have public meetings tonight and every school committee meeting until we vote on it. And the vote will happen on, I believe, April 9th. Before we take a vote, there will be a public hearing. We will open a public hearing, and anyone can come to speak at the public hearing to weigh in. And this is the process we use for the school committee, for the school budget. At that meeting on April 9th, then the school committee will vote to approve or change or whatever that budget. Then that will be the school committee budget, and the school committee budget goes to town meeting for approval. It's a different process than the other town departments because town meeting has the authority to look at every line item in the other town departments, but the line items in the school department budget are under the jurisdiction of the school committee. So when we send our school committee budget to town meeting, it will be voted on by the town meeting members. They can ask questions, and it would be voted up or down at town meeting in that way. So I know this has been discussed before, but I did feel that it was important because still, someone might be listening tonight who hadn't heard that. So Dr. Conti, with that, at our last school committee meeting, we reviewed the certain departments like the high school, and I'm not remembering all the list. Tonight, we will be discussing the elementary school requests, the middle school requests, the IT department, the library, health services, SIO, is that security?
School Information Office.
School Information Office, Ms. Milano, very important. The transportation budget and the operations and plant budget. So we have a lot to get through, and I will pass it on to you, Dr. Conti. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to invite up our elementary principals who are here. Again, Nicole McDonald from Francis Wyman, John Lyons, Pine Glen, David Rosenblatt, Fox Hill, and Patricia English Sand from Memorial. It's always a pleasure to have them here. I know they're all excited to be here at a school committee meeting. They ask me all the time whether they can come, and I actually tell them they can't. I'm glad I finally could allow you all to come here on a Tuesday night. So, thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Dr. Conti. I am tasked with getting us started tonight. I don't have any budget requests this year, but I did want to express a great amount of gratitude from all of us for all of your support over the years, whether it's through positions or resources. You have been extremely responsive and generous to our communities, and we're very thankful for that. Speaking just for Fox Hill, I think over the years, there's been at least 6 new positions that have been added through your generosity, and that's been huge for our building. So thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over, I believe, to Ms. English Sand. Yes.
On behalf of all of us, I get to do the asking. Good evening. It is a privilege to be here this evening. This is my second year as a principal in this district, and I'm really proud to work in a district where so much of the materials for our students is provided by the district. I've worked in many districts where that's not the case. In terms of equity and lots of things, it's so important. My ask in terms of my, in representing my fellow elementary principals is just consideration in terms of those supplies, sort of what the cost of everything has increased in delivery, and that our budget, I can only speak to my 2 years here, but historically the budget has not increased that much. Again, this is just a practical, mathematical sort of situation we're in terms of maintaining the supplies, the math books, the paper, all those kinds of supplies that are essential for learning. But the demand on the budget is increased because of the demand in cost and delivery and those kinds of things. Just a consideration. And again, I'm grateful for the increased staff that I've received last year at my request. And the only consideration I have for this year is the possibility of an additional or an assistant principal at my school. Okay.
Just to echo what David was saying, is just a great amount of appreciation to this committee and all its support over the years. This is my 15th budget I'm presenting, and it's always been something where I feel very fortunate to be in Burlington and have the support of the committee and prioritizing children and their growth over the years. It's really just wonderful. One of the things that we're asking for in this budget is an assistant principal. 2 years ago, Pine Glen was 273 students. We're currently at 341 students. So we've seen a big growth over the years. In addition to that, the Developmental Skills Center, when it started, was 1 special needs teacher and 2 IAs. We're currently at 5 special needs teachers and close to probably 25 IAs. So it's almost, we have more IAs than we do classroom teachers at Pine Glen. So the hiring, the recruiting of that is definitely a challenge, and an assistant principal to help with just the employment opportunities and things like that. And again, thank you to the committee. We just have stellar teachers and counselors, and particularly your support for adding the mental health counselors we have over the years has been incredibly critical to our students' growth, particularly after following the pandemic. So that component of Pat and I would easily use that resource if we were to be able to have that in the budget. The other position we're asking for at Pine Glen is a second reading specialist. Right now, we currently have 1 reading specialist, and with the growth I showed in the numbers of students we have at Pine Glen, that one person trying to get to interventions for reading for 6th grades is really a task, and having 2 people would be a great asset to the students and their growth in reading going forward.
Thank you. Ms. McDonald?
Thank you for hosting us this evening. Always a pleasure. And just want to echo our team's appreciation for your continued support always. Francis Wyman is very fortunate to have the resources, the skilled teachers, and the support staff that we have. So thank you for making that possible. We do have one specific need currently. I know Carrie Lamprey has already presented and has advocated, but at Francis Wyman, we have grown from 30-plus ELL students in the past year to over 70 currently. So in doubling that population, we still have the same 2 ELL positions that we have had. So it's really challenging for that team to service the needs of that growing population. And people are working incredibly hard. Reading specialists, teachers, support staff to meet the needs certainly of all students, but particularly that bulge that we've had this year. So I know we're looking for a third ELL teacher to help support that growing need, and would appreciate careful consideration for that. So thank you for that.
I just actually, with all of your thanks to us, I realized that I left out in my introduction that the town and the town meeting have been very generous to the schools over the years, and our budget is a large part of the town's budget overall, and so we are very grateful for that support over the years and that support again this year. So just wanted to make sure we talked about that as well. And I have been volunteering as a tutor once a week with a couple of the second grade EL students, and it's been just such a treat, both in terms of my interactions with the students, but I've also had opportunities to just interact with some of the teachers more, and we really do have a wonderful teaching staff here in Burlington, so thank you.
No, I just want to, again, thank the principals for being here. I think they use the resources that they're provided very well. I think the comment about supply costs going up, I think last year you gave us a concrete example about the cost of paper. We have level funded supplies just to meet our guideline for several years, and we can't continue to do that, so that's catching up to us. That's just something the committee needs to be aware of. I also think that there have been years in practice, doesn't mean it has to happen, where if there were shifts in student demographics or enrollment that were beyond everyone's control. So as Nicole is saying, the 80% growth that Ms. Lamprey told you in our newcomer population, that some of those resources and positions would be considered outside of the guidelines. So I think that's something that, again, we can certainly talk about, but clearly there's a need to address some of the changing demographics that we have. Even if our enrollment is staying steady, who makes up that enrollment is critical moving forward. And again, I just want to, take this opportunity. You guys have expressed gratitude. It's really, I think, those of us up here who owe your staffs and yourselves the debt of gratitude. School happens in classrooms, not up here in the central office, and these guys manage those classrooms every single day. So thank you all very much. And I didn't see one request that was out of line. I only wish we could provide you sort of everything that you're asking for.
Ms. Monaco?
You guys did a whole lot of thanking of us. But, we're pretty proud of our schools, and we wouldn't be able to be so proud of our schools if you weren't running them and taking care of them. So we appreciate you. And to the 2 principals that have my grandchildren, have they started any food fights lately?
No, very well behaved.
All right. Well,
I think they take after their
that
take after their grandfather is what happens.
Yeah, no, I want you to know how much we appreciate all the work you do. And if we could give you everything you asked for, we'd be thrilled to do it. So whatever he can do.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions from the members or comments? Okay. Again, thank you for all you do. Thank you for coming tonight. And don't know what Dr. Conti will figure out of his magic hat, so thank you. Yeah. All right, the next topic, Dr. Conti, is
Yes, I'm
Marshall
sorry.
Simons. I'll do it.
I was distracted by a grandchild. Middle school. Carrie, you have your team here, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'm surprised he hasn't already staffed one.
So we're joined by Dr. Purchase, Dr. Athanalis, and Miss Mantilla. So come on up. This is the middle school leadership team. Thank you all for coming out again. It's an honor to have you here.
Welcome.
Pushing the button. We did put together a very short slide deck, so and I share that just so it's helping us organize our thoughts. So thank you for having us here. I'm also going to put in a request for next year.
Yeah.
The middle school is the early start time. We have to get there at 7 o'clock in the morning, and so it would be great if we could go first next year. I'm just teasing a little bit,
Good
just a
point.
little bit.
But not really.
So I want to thank my elementary colleagues, our elementary colleagues, with setting the stage and really just starting the Mutual Admiration Society. I think that this is my 6th budget presentation, I believe, and the support of the community through the school committee has been incredible. It's hard to ask for more when we've been able to kind of make do, but I have seen a shift and a change in terms of being able to take that level funding and make it stretch across of what we have. And I think that is a recognition, and know that you can't, you're given the guideline and we need to go from there. So I thought that it would be just to frame kind of the enrollment and the changes that we've seen is to take a quick historical look at the enrollment at Marshall Simons Middle School. So the first slide. Oh, okay, thanks, Mr. Kuna. It just provides a 6-year snapshot of our enrollment and how it's increased slightly over time, but it certainly has increased. So in 2018, 2019, we had 787 students, and this year, as of March 24th, we had 872. So again, not a huge increase in students, but certainly a slight increase over time. And then to break that down a little bit further, looking ahead into our next year, we're not seeing, next slide, thank you. We're not seeing a huge difference and a huge increase, but we are looking at maintaining that. So we are projecting that we'll be right around 878, 880 over through the course of next year. I think that the population bubble that's makes such a difference is that 310. The middle school model is meant to kind of ebb and flow with enrollment in terms of when we have 3 teams, 4 sections on each team, those 12. We're not looking at it through that elementary lens of like, oh, we're going to go down to 11 classrooms this year or not. I will say that we're taxing our class sizes in currently in 7th grade and looking at 8th grade, so that's something to consider. Did not break it down too much, but it's certainly looking at our students with disabilities, both getting services through individual education plans and then through 504 plans. Those processes, those plans have processes that need to be kind of overlooked and managed by personnel as well. So those numbers make a difference in terms of making sure that we are following our processes and procedures and all of our legal requirements there. And certainly, I feel a little, our enrollment for our multilingual learners has not necessarily increased as much, but I would say that the level of need of those students have changed and shifted in terms of the numbers. And how we're meeting their needs is another thing that we really need to consider and look at. So while it's not something that we've been asked to do in the past, I just wanted to take a quick look at what we're projecting our class sizes are. Again, the middle school model is meant to kind of ebb and flow with the numbers, but our current 7th grade, our incoming 8th grade. At 12 sections, we're at 25.8 students per section as an average. That does not account for the fact that we currently have 2 levels of mathematics, which then drives some of those numbers differently, making sure that we have building a schedule that are meeting kids' needs and are providing those opportunities to as many students as we can. And that's where we really get that, that range of 19 to 31. And that's based on what are currently in math classes in 7th grade is what we're looking at. So I just wanted to bring attention to that. Thank our educators because they're doing really amazing work to do their best to support students. But, you know, every time Ms. Milano's office calls over and says, oh, we have a new student, we're like, oh my goodness, is it 7th grade? Because we're running out of desks in those classrooms. So, and then just as a point of comparison, wanted to take that projected 878 students and look at what the ratio is to certain roles in this in the middle school. So from an administrative standpoint, that is about 1 administrator to 293 students. For our team chairs, I looked at the number of students who are currently on IEPs, and that is 1 team chair to 78 students. So those are at least 78 meetings. You know, if it's a reeval, and that does not account for initial evaluations as well. Our grade level guidance counselors, we currently have, you know, quite proud of our tiered model of counseling support, and our tier 1 models tier 1 counselors are our guidance counselors who work with 1 group of students at a grade level. They're providing lessons several times throughout the year. They're providing support, being a liaison with families, and, you know, attending, you know, many of those IEP meetings, but then also really managing the 504 process as well. They are the 504 kind of liaisons with families there as well. So if we look at the grade 1, the tier 1 counselors, that's 1 in 293 again. And then if we look at our 504, the number of current 504s, that we're asking each one of those guidance counselors that are supporting the 293 students to then also oversee on average 28 504 plans, which include annual meetings, writing of the report, and going from there. I think that we continue through our work with our MTSS team to really focus in on our tier 1 curriculum and instructional pathways. And again, our teachers are doing great work, and we still have some students who are not making as much progress in the moment. So it's really important that we're also looking at how we're supporting that both in the classroom, but also through our tier 2 and tier 3 supports. So I think, you know, and at some point this spring we'll be back with some kind of presentation of, you know, some projected schedule changes that we'll be asking the committee's kind of thoughts on. And certainly our schedule review committee has been looking at and, you know, kind of incorporating more of a win block at times, and then making sure that we have the structures in place to support that. So wanted to take a look at our current intervention support, our tier 2 providers, and we have one reading specialist and a 0.6 math interventionist, and then we have 1 tutor in each place. So I think that that's, you know, if that's where we're going, and certainly we want to continue to provide students what they need in a timely fashion, we also have to look at who's going to be providing that and making sure there's a structure there. And I would be remiss, we all know who runs our schools, and while we like to think it's the administrators, we know it's really the secretaries that are on the front line doing that work. So looking at, with the increase of enrollment over time, the demands of that job, we have 3 clerical staff, 2 in the main office, 1 in our guidance office. So if we break that down in our main office, that's 1 secretary per 439 students. Our secretary in our guidance office is really focusing on student services. So every 504 and IEP is also funneling through her, and she's also doing our schedule changes and doing that work in terms of just being the registrar in the building as well. So I offer you all of that as a way to continue to, to advocate for the middle school. And I want to thank you for your continued support. And, and it's kind of hard to sit here and ask for more. And I also know that the ask is really around the advocacy for what we think is most important to support students. And we know that you'll all have difficult decisions to prioritize what that is. So I know this is an ask that I would hope that you would consider, and then kind of go from there. So if we look at our asks, starting, and I anticipated the question that there would be if you're not going to get all of that, and we know that, but really kind of prioritizing what those needs are. I think that prioritizing the needs of students, certainly. So the addition of another multilingual teacher for our English language learners would provide us more flexibility in scheduling and meeting the diverse needs, and then also providing support in classrooms as well. So that would be one ask. We currently have 2 EL teachers to support 3 grade levels. We are asking for an additional Tier 1 counselor. Again, we're at a ratio of 1 to 293. That additional counselor would share that Tier 1 responsibility and also share the 504 caseload. So I think that would be an important piece. And what we are seeing with the support that we have and the tiered support is that we're in a proactive place as opposed to a reactive place. So the more we can build those relationships and provide that support at that first tier, the hope is that we're decreasing the number of students that are really requiring that ongoing longer term kind of intervention and support. This would be enrollment based. So as Dr. Conti spoke about kind of that need is with the 310 projected students, 310 current students in 7th grade, but projected into 8th grade. We're asking for 2 additional teachers, proposing a model that there would be 1 6-person team. So we would look for a middle school humanities certified teacher and a middle school STEM certified teacher, and that they could teach 2 sections of math, 2 sections of science, and then the humanities teacher could do 2 sections of ELA, 2 sections of social studies. It would bring our class size back down to 22, which tends to be on average, and then kind of bringing that flexibility with the math leveling down, away from that 31 piece. So that would be an enrollment-based ask, and I think one that could, really support students overall in the regular classroom, in the Tier 1 classroom. An additional math instructional specialist, or even a part of one, we're at 0.6, so if we could increase that by even a 0.5, that would be helpful in making sure that we're getting kids what they need in that area. In the area of music, every student in the middle school takes music for 2 out of 6 days in a cycle for 3 years, and that's to allow students not to have to choose to take, band or chorus instead of art or another allied arts class. And so our music classes are quite large. We're able to schedule it right now, but they are quite large. I think the other piece that comes into play is that we share staff with the elementary school. So we have an instrumental teacher that comes over to teach lessons to our 6th grade students, and then we have the string teacher that comes over. I think when I last spoke to Mr. Middleton Cox, it was about a 0.6 or 0.7 between those 2 staff members, with lost time going between buildings and things like that. So what I'm proposing is that we could have an additional music teacher that would bring us up to 4, that we would be able to take on the lesson responsibilities ourselves. We would no longer need to share staff, and that would provide a more consistent experience for kids and allow us more flexibility in scheduling. Special education teacher is a nice to have. It's not a need to have. So I think that we have, through scheduling, we have, we're adequately staffed there, but we are seeing an increase in those numbers as well. So that's why that is a prioritized list of asks. We had asked last year for an increase in our clerical support for a part-time person, someone, 3 or 4 hours a day, where we could really support our secretaries in getting through managing the attendance and kind of the staff attendance, the student attendance. The office is a very busy place in the morning, so that would just be a place to help. Certainly when we have mailings that go out, so in October we have to send out the MCAS scores and our iReady scores. That's almost 900 envelopes and things. So that is something that we could alleviate some of the pressure points and would be really helpful. And in final, we're asking for an additional assistant principal. And I don't ask for that lightly because I do think that it seems a little self-serving in some ways. But as we have been thinking about the work that we're doing at the middle school and the work that our leadership team is doing, and really the work that Dr. Athanellis and Ms. Mantilla are doing around students. One administrator to 293 students it's on paper reasonable, but then when you start to dig into the different needs of middle school students developmentally, the number of conflicts that we're supporting and looking into, whether it's a bullying allegation or the amount of learning that's embedded in each one of those conversations, it's not kind of here's the consequence, and that's it's we want to support students, and we want to make sure that we're meeting their needs and making sure that that's a learning experience, and that we're building in restorative pieces to that. In looking at the enrollment, and this is not to kind of cast blame or shame or anything on Mr. Sullivan, so I will apologize now, but looking at their enrollment, as of March 1st, the high school had 916 students compared to our 869 at that same time. I think that they might have had a few more students since then, but they have, in addition to the K-12 directors who do support our evaluation and supervising our health and PE department, our art department, and our music department, they also have department heads who share in the supervision and evaluation and support of curriculum instruction in the classrooms. And they also have an administrative team of a total of 5 people. So when you look at the ratio, again, of students, not, high schools are different, so it's not apples to apples or oranges to oranges, but the ratio there is 1 administrator to 183 students. And so in addition, we're doing many of the same tasks in terms of scheduling. Ms. Mantilla spends hours kind of digging into that. And then also MCAS testing for 3 different grade levels for additional, we've got the ELA, the math, the science, technology, and engineering in 8th grade, and now we have the civics as well. So for all of those reasons and the complexities of our jobs, I put forward that proposal. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Dr. Conti?
Again, Carrie, thank you for coming out. I know it's late, so I appreciate you all being here. And again, please extend gratitude to all of your staff, your teachers, and certainly to yourselves. Middle school is near and dear to my heart as a former 7th grade teacher. And I do think that your enrollment has, you've had some big classes, and the resources haven't necessarily matched that growth. So I do appreciate that you're doing more with less. You mentioned the 2 additional 8th grade teachers, and I immediately said, do we have space for those 2 teachers? I'm sure you figured that out already, so I won't need to ask, but the building's
I didn't want to rattle any cages until we knew it was going to go forward, but it's going to have to displace, someone at some point.
Right, so I think that's it. I think the sort of the much younger classes don't seem to be putting that same pressure on, but again, those are years away, and a lot can happen in those years in terms of moving in. So like your elementary colleagues, I haven't seen any of your requests that I think would be, again, they're all reasonable requests. I think they all match your need, and I'm really hoping that we can help provide some of those resources or reallocate some of the resources to meet the population that you currently have. But please thank all of your staff, from, again, those providing support to those in the classroom for all that they're doing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Is there any questions or comments from the members? Nope. Again, you have a lot on your plate, middle school. We know there's a lot going on, and I hope that we'll be able to provide some additional resources.
Great.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, and next up, we have IT. Mr. Villano, thank you. Oh, you brought your crew with you. Why don't you all introduce yourselves so everyone knows?
I can introduce
Okay,
John
Dr.
Allegretto.
Conte?
So John's here. He left us for a few years and then came back. He couldn't stay away. So Fadine Satirial. So Fadine actually manages everyone and keeps everyone in line and keeps everything organized. So Fadine, thank you. We know things wouldn't get done without you. Dennis Villano. Dennis has been in charge of the Director of Technology Integration. He's been in front of you before. And I like to think that all of our jobs have an operational and strategic component to them. And I really like to think that Dennis forces us to think strategically. So Dennis, I really appreciate your strategic look at the district and making sure that we're continuing to look forward. So thank you for that, and your team for that.
I wanted to make sure I brought support. Jose D'Souza is not here tonight. Jose is the Director of Technology, so his IT budget is really what we'd be discussing first. But Fadine is here. Fadine helps Jose and I both with budgets, whether it's the library or computer science or educational technology, or what else am I missing? Am I missing anything else? Library, esports. And John, I wanted to mention this, and thank you for Dr. Conte for introducing John, but last year I was here and we spoke about the position that John has, the senior systems admin position, and you all supported that coming back into the district. And I just want to say what an important role that's been and how much of a help John's been to the district technology so far. Everyone's been thanking everyone, and I think that that's always what I like to do here too. I can say though, this is my 22nd year, I think, Dr. Conte. I think we're around 22nd year. I started as a substitute, then a classroom teacher, then a teacher librarian, and now here to support what we're doing. So I've always felt support from the school committee and the town with what we've asked for over the years. So I feel very supported in that way. For IT, the technician position is the one positional. Yes. So there's one positional request that's an increase. It's a technician role. So technicians in the district are the first level of technology support. They go out to the buildings. They support the Get Help tickets, which are, my projector's not working, my laptop's not working, iPad. They are directly tied to what is happening in classrooms. They're not doing as much on the network or on the system side. They are out in the buildings doing that support, and John can back up anything I say here about that. We currently have 2, but I think what you're seeing is the more we are reliant on technology, not just instructionally, administratively, in everything that we're doing, these needs continue to grow for the district, for any district. So this additional IT technician will allow the technical support at that first level to be better handled and better spread out throughout the schools. We currently have 2 technicians that support all 6 building sites. Other than that, in the IT budget, there are some increases that you will see, but they're not necessarily new requests. There are some things that Nicole, Ms. Caution, and Mr. D'Souza have worked on reorganizing where they're coming from. I think one that is coming into the budget that's would be new to this year's Thought Exchange is going in, so that appears to be an increase, but that is something that was being used this year.
Madam Chairman.
Dr. Conte, yes.
Dennis, you and I had talked about insurance and changing our insurance model. So when we first went to a one-to-one, we offered parents, it was a very reasonable purchase of insurance. It was very popular when we first started the one-to-one, and it has become much less popular, and I think it's been much more time-intensive through the insurance companies. So it would be if your son or daughter had an iPad, you could take out either a rider, or I think was $17 or something at the time. And then if anything happened to the iPad, you would go through your insurance company to fix it. It just has become cumbersome to do that because of the popularity of the iPad. And so I think the model, Dennis, that you had talked about was going to the Apple Care has changed and is much more efficient now. So if we add some price to the iPads that we're purchasing, they're automatically covered and parents don't need to purchase the insurance. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, so AppleCare, when we started, the one-to-one program was not a very good program. AppleCare is directly from Apple. They have since improved that over the years significantly. AppleCare now covers a device, if it's broken, twice per year without a deductible. So it is an upfront cost. You are paying for each device to essentially be insured, but they will cover the repairs for breakage on that device, up to 2 incidents per year without a deductible. That is a major improvement over the current structure, which is a optional insurance for families that, although WorthAv has been good, and Fadine works with WorthAv often, they've been supportive, it can be challenging for families to go through that insurance process because that is something between the family and the insurance company. This is something the district would provide support for up front, and then the technicians that we were just talking about, that first level of support would swap out a broken iPad, and Fadine would then send that iPad back to Apple for the AppleCare support and just continue to rotate the inventory. So it should speed up breakage. We do sometimes see students, middle school and high school, with cracked screens or something like that. Maybe they're not able to have it fixed. Maybe they don't have insurance. This would take care of that. And it will also help population of students who maybe can't afford the insurance or to pay for a replacement device. So it should help both of those things. But the program is vastly improved over the past. I don't think it's something we would have considered in the past. John's been doing a lot of the research on this. John has been working directly with Jose and the Apple representatives to work out details and options with that program, along with Ms. Kasha.
Comments? I'm sorry, is that everything, or does anyone have a comment on this, either the AppleCare or the presentation in general? Mr. Brooks?
Oh, I mean, I had asked about this, I think, last year, so I'm happy to see this. I think it'll be improvement for families. Thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
Just a question on the warranty period. So you said twice per year. What's the length of coverage for that? And then what's the tech refresh cycle? Does that meet to where we're not burdening ourselves with more cost for a device?
We're looking at 3 years for right now. We're looking at 3 years at the moment. We considered going to 4, but 3 seems to be the sweet spot. Yeah.
Does that meet with our tech refresh cycle? So we're
Yes.
basically refreshing them before
So
they get
essentially, our tech refresh for iPads is a school every year. So an elementary school refresh every year, one of the schools. Grades 6 and 9 will be what it is. So if you're a 6th grader, you get a new device, you have it for 6th, 7th, and 8th. AppleCare will cover that device for the middle school years for 6, 7, 8, and then as the high school student gets their iPad in 9, cover it 9, 10, and 11. And for the most part, we see most of our students go to a BYOD program when they're a senior.
And BYOD stands for?
Bring your own device. So they typically will switch out. Some keep the iPad for that 4th year, but for many of them, I don't know if we have a number or percentage, but they see Fadine, and they go through the process of returning that device that we provided and getting their own device put on the Wi-Fi in the district.
Right.
All right. Ms. Monaco.
Dennis, when you explained that to us in another meeting, it sounded like a really good idea, so I support it.
Dr. Conti?
Just quickly, Dennis, esports is becoming much more popular. Is that, are you outgrowing that space, or are the needs of that team changing because the technology there is pretty important, correct?
Well, the technology is very high level that they use. A lot of our students that are of the higher level competition in esports that are competing against other players, other schools. Some of them actually prefer to use their own equipment because they still have better equipment. This is not something you do on an iPad. This is something you do on an extremely powerful laptop. So we are going to need to, at some point, be able to provide them with some higher level equipment. The space is great. We use Area 123 for a lot of our competition, or some of them even held off-site. But obviously, as it grows, as a program, as it grows, we'd love to see a bigger space, a bigger arena. I think the goal originally was to get a club team together, then to get a competitive team together, and then, I think I said this to you many years ago when I was here, to have our first college scholarship athlete for esports. And I think we're close. We're very close. Mr. Wong and Mr. Hart could tell you a little bit more details, but we had a couple of very highly ranked students this year. So I think we're close to getting that official first college student athlete for esports signing day that we've been wanting to do for a long time.
I would like to just, my brain already is thinking if we have a rebuilt or new high school, what kind of a space would that look like? And I'm sure that in the program development, that will be discussed. And already I'm thinking, so are there spaces that could be designed that could be used in different ways? So during the school day, it could be used for X, Y, or Z, but during athletic time for the esports, after school and evenings, then maybe have it set up so that it's manageable for both.
Absolutely.
So I would hope that we can look at trying to design something along those lines so that it is cost effective and meets other needs at the same time would be great.
And ultimately, Ms. Simon, you're really describing what Fadine and I did when we put on, built Area 123. During the day, that's booked every day for activities, even for testing at the high school level. It's built for meetings and professional development, so it's used all day. And then often it's the afternoons when the team will go in there and practice.
Great, thank you. Dr. Conti, I'm sorry, Mr. Brooks.
Just one more technology question. So with the computer science pathways program, the robotics program, and the drone program, what needs are you anticipating growing over the year? Actually, noticed you said you're going to provide more sophisticated equipment for those programs as esports levels of competition increase, and it seems like all three of those other programs are increasing sophistication as well. Are we, putting tech refreshes in to support those needs?
That's a great question. So it's a little bit hard to explain it, but what I'm here to support, what we're all here to support, is Jose D'Souza's IT budget. That doesn't really provide the support for the things that you just mentioned, like the drones or the esports equipment. We've actually purchased a lot of that through warrants that the town, that you have supported and the town has supported, and also through some grants. We've been lucky to have been awarded some major grants from the state for computer science. Obviously, those are great, but they do run out. And there is a point where there needs to be a refresh and something to further, get the drones, get new robotics devices. So we have been talking a lot about increasing the computer science department and building out a real computer science department in which you would have a budget that would fully support those type of needs. Again, that doesn't fall necessarily in IT, which is Jose, or library. It falls a little bit outside of that. It's a little bit more specialized, but they tend to be, as I know you know this, quite expensive equipment. And we were able to use things for a long time. We're able to keep them going. Mr. Wong does a lot of the refresh work himself to keep things going at the high school. But as the need grows K-12, remember, we're doing computer science pre-K to 12. We're a CS for all district. We're doing computer science at every level. So the needs of those devices that we have as peripherals in those classrooms are going to continue to grow.
Thank you.
If you could, for people who are listening, so when you say peripherals for pre-K or peripherals for fourth grade, just could you give us a couple of examples? I can think of a couple, but
yeah. So pre-K typically uses two devices called an Indy, which is a little robotic car. I didn't bring them last year. I brought the Rover robot. I didn't bring them this year. Indy is a little robotic car that is computational thinking. So you're basically teaching a child without a tablet. This is kind of without that, based on color tiles, how to solve a problem and get that little robot from one place to the next. They also use a device called a Bee-Bot, which is a little, it looks like a bumblebee, right? Yeah, like a bumblebee with little numbers on top, and they press it to code it, the appropriate distance to where they need to go, the angles. These are things that we typically see starting in first, second, third grade. We're starting them in pre-K, which is a little bit advanced, and then those steps progress to higher level devices. Then we go to a thing called a Bolt, which is another robotic thing that is coded, and we move into using a tablet, using their iPads to program the devices, all the way up to what Mr. Wong does, or Mr. Fatal does at the high school, which is very high level language-based programming of devices like the drones. So it's a progression, and it starts with those very simple computational devices and grows to things that I don't understand myself.
That's great. Good. Better description, of course, than I could have. And I want to add that in programming these little devices, students are learning more than just numbers. They're learning mathematical thinking. They're learning persistence. Often I know the teachers are teaching lessons where they cooperate and they learn to collaborate and share. And so this is just so wonderful to see how the Computer Science for All is adding to our students' knowledge and experience experience and ability to be successful when they go out in the adult world. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments?
No, just a great job, and I think sometimes in Burlington, we have such talented people in programs that we take it for granted, and these type of programs don't exist in many places. So Dennis, thank you for all the coordination and work that you do. It does make a difference. Last Friday, I spent the morning with a graduate, I think from 8 years ago, Nick Merlino. Nick graduated, I think, with Robbie, I think. I forget the class, but he went to UMass for computer science, got his master's in computer science. You guys know him, and he's currently working for MITRE in their cybersecurity area. And he took a tour, a group of superintendents around MITRE with the Commissioner of Education, and just introduced us to people who were solving problems there. And we got to see their new Blue Lab, which is their, they have a facility for underwater testing and exploration. It was a pretty neat tour, but he mentioned the courses that he took at Burlington High School and sort of how that lit a fuse for him and sparked his knowledge. And again, he's made a great career from those choices. He's giving back now as a mentor to Burlington students, Mr. Brooks, as you are as well. So I think you don't know the impact you're going to have, but again, he was. It was good to see, and I guess I've been here long enough now where I'm starting to see former students as adults, and so it was just anyway.
Well, we're seeing two things. So one, it's great to see them come back and be mentors in the internship program at the high school, but also I'm starting to see some that have startup companies in technology. So they're now reaching out as vendors about their products that they're building. So it's pretty cool to see.
Good.
So again, please, as everyone else, thank all of your staff, your teachers, the technicians. You guys cover the gamut, and thank each of you for, like I said, you really force us to think strategically. Dennis and I are working with a group doing XR and VR, and they have some programming that they're discussing. Dennis, we're talking about putting a course at the high school next year in what now?
It's augmented reality.
Augmented reality, which is probably how I live anyway,
yes.
but without the glasses. But so it's an augmented reality course.
Yeah, they provide several courses where we currently have VR sets. If you may have seen them in a school, right now our cart is actually at Memorial Elementary, and Ms. Meyer there is using it in the library. And students visit places they go to on virtual field trips. The difference with the XR Terra program is the students create the spaces. So instead of just kind of consuming a space in VR, they're actually creating the spaces. So this is very high level. Mr. Wong is going to take on some of the pilot of this and take a look at this year, and we'll see where exactly it will fit best for next year. So we use a Pico
Could we
headset.
repeat the question? Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Which devices are you using?
So at our cart that we currently have, which came from a warrant that was supported by the town, are Pico headsets. They look like Oculus or Meta headsets. Unfortunately, they're not the new Apple ones that everyone talks about. We don't have those, but they're a VR headset that allows you to go to different locations, to museums, to field trips. We don't use any of the game content, but they have all of that as well. But similar to what you would see on like a Meta Quest.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because I have a lab myself of those types of headsets.
Picos are great. They're a good and they work well with this XR Terra program that we're going to pilot.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in and everything you do, and I hope that we'll be able to fulfill some of your requests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Oh, next. Library.
So library, we'll jump right into.
Hi, Mr. Villano.
Yes.
Welcome.
So there is an additional request in library this year, and I want to tell you about why that's there. It's specifically for two new programs. Our library team at the elementary, we have an amazing elementary team. I wanted to point out while I'm here, The MSBA commented on the Fox Hill project and specifically commented on how you all have supported full-time licensed professional librarians in the district. That is very rare in the country. I think, Dr. Conti, it's very rare in the state. The town I live in doesn't have any. So we have that in every school building, which is rare. And our team is amazing at the elementary school, and they've been wanting to do a program for several years that they tried to do with some donations in the past. It really needs to be funded, and it needs to be funded on an annual basis. So the program, the first one is a summer reading program for elementary students. It will provide one for sure, but all the way up to 3 books per student that they can keep, that they will get to select from a selection of books at the end of the school year to take home and have for the summer for their own reading. And obviously a big part of what we do is for the love of reading, but also to continue them reading throughout the summer. It's not a summer reading program where they're necessarily going to come back and get tested or anything like that or have an exam. This is just for the love and joy of reading, hopefully some books that they can select from that they're interested in. So that program would take some funding each year, and that's what this request that is in here for, to develop a program around that for all of the elementary school students every year. The second part of it is every year the Massachusetts School Library Association has children's book award winners. These are books that are selected as award-winning books for students of different grade levels. We're mainly talking for this program for 4th and 5th grade. This would provide a unit of study around those books. So those books come out during the school year. If we are able to, we buy copies of them, but we certainly we're not able to buy enough to cover a full unit of study for all students. So this would fund that unit of study that would allow us to buy those children's award-winning books every year, all of those books, and put it around a program for 4th and 5th grade students to read those books. And then they would be working with the teacher librarian in their school to talk about them, to present about them, and to do some research around them. So the additional funds are specifically to those 2 programs.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, thank you again for your time and all that you do for us. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much. Again, health services is.
If we could start with maybe switch the order since
we are. I'm just going to tell you, health services is level funded, and
Okay.
No one is here. So if there are questions,
Okay.
if you could please forward me the questions. But again, I think we're just moving forward in terms of where we are. There'll be some contractual increases, but other than that, everything is staying the same. Our student information office, Ms. Miliano,
here she comes.
very patient. Thank you.
She is always.
Student Information Office, I think when I first came into this sort of business, we would do stuff on punch cards, believe it or not, and things have changed dramatically, and the amount of data that Robin has to manage and input, the reports that she needs to provide to the state, the funding that she is responsible for us receiving is just incredible and really important. So in many cases, Robin, your office is the first contact families have with the school district. So she's also sort of the ambassador of Burlington Public Schools, and she does a remarkable job providing a welcome to the school district as well as the town of Burlington. So as a product of Burlington Schools, you have much to share with the families who come in. So thank you, Robin. And thank you for your patience. And Ms. Ciccolini is saying you need a comp day for staying so late. So she's advocating for you online.
She always helps me out.
She's
She always
advocating
helps
for
me
you
out.
online.
Only one?
Only one.
That's all right. It's good evening. So my budget is level funded. The one thing that you'll notice is my department used to pay for School Messenger, which was our communication platform, and we have moved into Parent Square, which I know you've all heard a lot about Parent Square. And so now that is a much bigger budget item, and I think Dr. Chen and Ms. Kasha are looking to sort of move all of that that type of services into the budget, into a separate line item. So my budget looks like it's a decrease, but it's really just money that's being moved from the school messenger, which was the former communication platform, over to a different line item for Parent Square. But otherwise, my budget is level funded. But what I thought I would just mention are some of the things that I have a line item for Aspen customizations, and just kind of let you know some of the things that we're going to be working on over the summer and into next year, which is one of the things that I have on my as a line item. So as we've rolled out Parent Square, we've realized that there are some nuances with it that we weren't sure, that we didn't know about before, and so we do need to change some of the data, the way that we send the data, and what data we do send to Parent Square, and we wouldn't have known that until we have sort of rolled it out for the first year. So the person that we use for our customizations will be working to create and modify the exports that we have. Like I can give an example. Right now, we don't bring over the account, who the counselors are, and so it's very hard to get a group for a counselor so that they can send their students or their parents, communication. So we have to modify the exports that we have created to add the counselor field. So there's many things that we've sort of found out over this course of the year that we've rolled out Parent Square. So that's one thing that we're going to be needing to spend a little bit of money on. Another thing is that we're going to be creating a workflow for Mr. Adebato in the counseling department at the high school that will help him with some reporting that he needs to provide for Department of Ed surrounding MCAS. And so right now that data is not easy for him to get, and so we're going to build a workflow through Aspen that will help identify the cases that he needs to send off to the Department of Ed. And so that's going to be a workflow that's going to be created through virtual pastimes as well. And then a much bigger workflow that we're working on with Ms. Ciccolini, Ms. Conceition, and Mr. Adebato is surrounding ed assessments in Aspen. We use the special ed module in Aspen, and in part of the IEP process there is an ed assessment that is either filled out by the counselor as well as the students' teachers. Right now, that's just collected on paper, and so we're going to create a workflow so that it will be done through Aspen and be part of their file within Aspen. So those are just some of the things that that we have planned for some of the consulting work that we have with virtual pastimes. So I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of some of the things that we'll be using some of that money for.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments? Ms. Monaco?
Nice to see you, Robin.
And you as well. Thank you.
Thanks for a nice presentation.
And again, I just can't stress enough the importance of the accuracy of the work that Robin does. It really drives the more that we do, the more we rely on data. The open architect stuff is all pulling from Aspen. So student schedules, again, the Department of Ed pulls everything right from there as well. So our Chapter 70, again, revenue comes from the information we have, our attendance rates, sort of everything goes through that system. So it's just remarkable the amount of coordination that happens. So thank you.
And I just wanted to mention one other thing that working with Dr. Chen and others in the district is our absent protocol, and so we're going to be putting letters into Aspen so that it will make it much easier for administrators to sort of print out letters that need to go home. We're working through a protocol right now, but that will be something else that we will be using Aspen for, and that will have to be getting all of that information into our student information system.
Okay, Ms. Monaco?
You do a lot of really detailed work, and it's impressive. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I can't say that in my office, I have Sandra Langefeld, who is amazing, and she works also closely with Dr. Chen. Half of her position is human resources, and so she does a lot with around our evaluation piece with Vector Solutions, and then she works with our in the student information, doing registrations and things like that. And then we have a part-time clerical, Kathy Van Kulenberg, who she just takes over our registration piece, and parents love her when they meet her. She's so friendly and she's so welcoming. So I couldn't do it without the support that I have as well. But thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to also thank you and your staff we really rely on your office for so many different parts of the district. It's very appreciated. Thanks. Okay, good night. All right. Dr. Conti?
Again, moving on to transportation. So you heard about the bids. I'm assuming that's the majority of the transportation cost, Nicole, or is this more than that?
Yes, this is primarily just that, the 16% increase based on the rates, and then there were some other changes, such as the additional traffic supervisor that you guys had approved for this year, but we hadn't actually incorporated that into the budget until this year.
And where is that? That is at Fox Hill?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Massardo.
So the warrant was like $2,200,000, and then the line item is less than that, so.
Yeah, so the way that we bid this out, there's also like other costs that live on the accommodated side of the budget.
Okay.
Some of like our special ed costs and those things too.
Okay.
So there is a little bit of a discrepancy there between this number and the number in that article.
That's fine.
Okay, and so when we present that to town meeting, will that be written up in the backup material for people to be sure they understand why that's different? Can we do that?
Sure, I can add a sentence.
That'd be great, because people ask questions, they notice, and we do, and that's important, so thank you.
I'm also trying to trying to
Yes.
get back to the transportation page, but it only listed the traffic supervisors at 2 schools. Am I wrong? It just says Fox Hill Memorial. So we don't have, I know there's a crossing guard at Pine Glen, and I think there's one at Francis Wyman.
This is what we get billed for from the police department.
Okay.
So there might be
Some cost sharing, I think. that
Okay.
happens.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I just wasn't sure, making sure we weren't cutting them.
No.
Okay.
Okay, all right, thank you. Other questions on the transportation budget? All right. So now we have the warrant articles, the capital warrant articles. And again, I want to,
We have.
oh,
before
no,
we
I'm
get to capital,
sorry, I just skipped over, I
we
didn't
have,
mean to
we have
skip over
Bob's,
Mr. Cuna.
Bob's budget.
We have the
and-
operations and plant
And again,
budget.
Bob, we've been thanking a lot of
Now I'm
educators.
gonna wake up, right?
But also want to thank your team, the support staff. I think they take care of, 800,000 square feet or something, and so they do a nice job. The learning environment is very important, that learning happen, and that students come into and teachers work in clean spaces, that our bathrooms are clean and maintained, that our buildings are maintained, is really important. So thank you and please pass on our gratitude to them.
Mr. Cuna, thank you.
Well, thank you all. I did not follow a 0% increase this year in my request. I think you've heard it before, but I'm seeing some of the cost of just services in general, whether that be contractors that are coming in, whether that are being materials that we need to buy, whether that be the cost of, just, again, tools that we need to do our job. And that's across the board. In particular, I want to highlight a couple of items. Electrical, there's a $10,000 increase there. And I want to say it's self-explanatory, but again, I need to stress that we do handle electrical in-house, so we do have a licensed electrician. The cost of materials is definitely has gone up, but we are also dealing with some older buildings, right? So some of it is outside of the scope of work that can be done in-house, whether it's large infrastructure or just extremely high voltage things, right? So in case of that, we've had to take those on into our operating budget. That's going to be the same answer for a few that you'll see here. Let me see, just to make sure I'm reading this correctly. So HVAC service calls, same exact thing. We're seeing that a lot. In the past year and a half, we've had 2 major HVAC situations, one at the middle school, approximately $100,000 for one large unit for the cooling tower over there. And then literally a month and a half later, right here at the high school, we lost 2 compressors, which we're asking for a warrant article to support additional downages. But you know, those range upwards of $50,000 to get onto the penthouse and do some of the work up there. So again, I'll explain some warrant articles in a few minutes. You know, and of course, through you all, we've taken on some composting as well too. So that's an additional cost that we weren't including in our budget. So looking to expand next year or even maintain the level of services that we have right now in the 6 schools, just an additional cost that, you know, we did not have in this year's operating budget. So again, I'm up approximately $48,000, which I know is a lot of money. But again, that could be one compressor on the roof. And it's definitely something that I need. So before we get to warrant articles, I do want to also add, I have put a request in this year. I'm typically not great at asking for help, but what I've seen myself encompass is that there's not 2 of me, and that being said is that while I do have a great support staff that's also willing to do help, but same, they're being stretched thin as well too. Right, so I'm really looking for somebody to assist me and compliment me on the work that needs to be done. As Dr. Conti mentioned a few minutes ago, not only is it maintenance and custodial staff, it's cafeteria, it's clerical, you know, it's transportation, it's IT in some capacities, it's building projects, both Fox Hill and high school. Again, like the list goes on. Some way, somehow, we're managing to get it done, like in somewhat of a timely fashion. But I do think that, you know, this district deserves some additional support in some key areas. And I think that 2 projects, building projects that we're currently under, will just continue to absorb more time and need more time. So again, I'd like you to consider that. But we're going to keep chugging along, and we're going to make sure that our team works hard to get, you know, everything done anyway. So I'd love to have some questions if there's some, or some comments.
Yeah, I remember last year that there was a request for an assistant position in your department, and we weren't able to fulfill that. I do think that having 2 school building projects on top of the workload that you already had is a pretty compelling argument. I will defer to Dr. Conti about priorities, but I definitely see the need for us to do that. And clearly, if we want to do building projects in the schools using our town money responsibly, then we want to be sure that we have somebody who's keeping an eye on it and has the time to keep an eye. I mean, you've been doing that, and it's been wonderful, and we've hired project managers to help us with it. But I do see an additional crucial need with this school building projects. It may have been needed even before that, so I just wanted to support that. So are there, do you want to make comments, Dr. Conti, about the operations budget?
Just a comment. Oftentimes, from an educational perspective, which I'm much more comfortable talking about, we talk about cost avoidance. There are some requirements and mandates that we have to pay for, and if we do sort of work early interventions, for instance, can save us money over the long haul. I think what I'm learning more about with maintenance, and I've had some longer conversations with Bob and some of his staff, is that if they have the time and the staffing to do more preventative maintenance, that it actually saves money over time, but it certainly costs some money to have people do that. So, Bob, I think an example that was given to me is some of the water pumps we have. If they're not maintained and they leak, they can function for a while, but they're not efficient, and then they cause more problems. And then if the water leaks, for instance, in the boilers, then tubes has to get fixed. And again, I'm way out of my area here, but I'm just saying, I just think that if, I think we have to approach maintenance a little bit more proactively, like education, like what I am comfortable with, and that does save money. And the size and scope of some of the things that are breaking, again, a investment in time can save hundreds of thousands of dollars, over time. But it's hard to make that justification because you're talking about a potential future cost. And but I do see that need. And if things are running more efficiently, if the univents are maintained, the filters changed, all that other stuff really helps the systems run. So.
Are there other questions or comments for Mr. Cuna about the operations department? Yes, Ms.
I just want to
Massardo?
give you the prize for the wackiest line items. We have a school dude and geese maintenance.
Yep.
So thank you
Yep.
for those requests.
Yes, Mr. Cuna.
I won't say where, but through my children, I've had the privilege of playing at other fields that don't take advantage of geese maintenance.
Yeah.
And let's just say the cleanup afterwards is not fun, right? Especially if it's
I
any
believe
type of tackle sport that involves ground contact.
I believe you.
So I also was surprised when I first came on and thought, why are we doing that? But seeing it in action is definitely beneficial to all the fields.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, moving on. Now, Dr. Conti, what's next? I'll let you just say so I don't make a mistake here.
Oh, no, everything's going well
Okay.
in the capital warrants, and we do need a vote tonight because the capital warrants need to sort of move forward. There's no surprises. I think you've seen all the capital warrants before. Bob, if you want to go through them quickly, if you have questions, we can certainly do that. My suggestion would be maybe, Bob, to make this efficient, we can discuss all of the capital items. Again, we can answer your questions, and then I think we need an individual vote on every item. So we can sort of do the votes at the end, Madam Chair, if that's okay with you?
Yes, that's fine.
So-
And it may be in the nature of efficiency, maybe we can name them and ask if people have questions and then move on. Because we've seen the material, I believe, unless Mr. Moran wanted to hear more described tonight.
We'll have a committee meeting where we can go into great detail about the inner workings of each one.
Okay.
I guess the only request that I would have tonight is if you could attach the town warrant article number, if you have those.
I don't.
You don't have those yet?
Nope.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Cuna.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the direction, too, because I was going to ask, how would you like to
Yeah.
approach this? Again, as Mr. Moran just mentioned, this is how we're proposing it, since you all haven't taken a vote on these yet. The town is holding these as placeholders, but they haven't been officially assigned to the warrant yet, so there is no number. Again, we're waiting for, obviously, the school committee to vote on these to then let the town manager know what the next steps would be. So in the priority that they're listed, the Pine Glen AC funding Part 2 for $322,416. $322,416. My apologies.
Are there any questions or comments tonight on that? I think we've discussed that.
These
Thank you.
are in priority order on here and in our packet, correct?
Is this the priority from the school district?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the lowest one is the fields, just to clarify?
It's
That's
not.
a separate one?
So again,
Okay, that's, I
Okay.
just wanted to know.
So through the chair, as a brief explanation as to why the field and the community custodial are listed after the school requests. The town gave us a guidance number for requests. Both of these two, community custodial and the MSMS field renovation, we're asking outside of our allotted request number.
Okay.
What do you call it? Specifically on the middle school field, while it's on a school property. So we're asking the school committee to actually propose the request. We're looking at this as a town project, and we're asking other departments, especially the rec department, maybe not to co-sponsor it, but definitely to stand up in support of this at town meeting because of the benefit that it will bring to all town departments and community members.
Good. All right, thank you. So, moving on to number 2.
So number 2 is the BHS, Burlington High School HVAC repairs. Just briefly, as we just discussed a minute ago, what I'm asking for is we have 11 penthouses on this roof. The penthouses is where all the HVAC equipment is housed, and each penthouse supports roughly 40,000 square feet of interior heating and cooling. We are aware of at least 2 penthouses that have mechanical pumps that are down, and 2 more penthouses that have smaller than pumps, TXV valves, and fan bearings that need to be replaced. And to hit them into my operating budget would be detrimental to perform any tasks that happen throughout the whole entire year. So I'm really asking for this to, support the request of fixing those.
And if I remember correctly, last June, when it was really, really hot, there was the equivalent of no air conditioning in certain parts of the high school. So this is a really crucial
Correct.
one in my mind as well.
Yep.
Thank you.
Next would be the retube of the BHS boilers. Again, we have 3 boilers here. As Dr. Conti just mentioned, this is something that preventative maintenance can save us money in the long run. Not only do we need heat, and these 3 boilers provide hot water for the whole entire building for not only heat, but the hot water that is in the sinks. If these were to be needed to be replaced, we'd be in the millions of dollars, but maintaining relatively costly but cheap comparatively project right here would definitely maintain these original to the building, 50-plus-year-old boilers that are essential, to providing heat. So.
Mr. Brooks?
Just one clarifying question on the quote. So it was originally quoted out in a year ago, refreshed December 15th. What was the period of performance on that quote? Was it 90 days? Do we think that number is going to hold till we do the work in June?
So I am asking for a 10% contingency just in case. I don't have it in writing, but I have it in verbal that unless there's something drastic, they're going to do their best to maintain the price on this. But again, the market is volatile, aluminum is volatile, and so forth, so some things may be outside of their constraints.
Okay, thank you.
All right. All right.
Sorry, so next we are asking for, just want to make sure I'm right. So this is district-wide security and communication, so for $82,390. This is a multi-part project. We're asking for additional radios that would be spread amongst the 6 schools. When I say radios, these are walkie-talkies that will be used internally, externally, on the property, playgrounds, ball fields, et cetera, but also have direct communication to the police department. We are looking to add additional blue buttons, which is part of our security system, again, spread out amongst all 6 schools. And then we are looking to add we're going to call it network in a box, but it's more than that, right? It's a critical piece that we don't necessarily have right now if we are ever in need of either reunification or in the event of loss of network or telecommunications. So what we're really trying to do is work with the task force for security and work with our police department. Again, Mr. Brooks helped put some of this information together as well with his expertise. And really try to provide an avenue, again, in the event of something serious that happens that takes us offline, to give us a way to communicate, again, with our security services, with our police department, with our fire department, or God forbid we ever need to have a reunification. While our police department trains in this all the time, this is just some pieces, like I said, that would really benefit the staff and students in the building and really get that communication with the police department one step further than it is now.
Okay, any questions or? Yes, Mr. Moran?
And this ties in to the same system that the police and fire are using?
So everything that we're asking for is an upgrade to our systems except for the network in a box. No, that's not the technical term for it. That would be an upgrade to the system that we have, so it's something that we would have to integrate into it. Again, it's not necessarily something that we are looking to use on a daily basis, so we're really looking for the police to assist us with this so we can maximize the use of it when need be. So it's really, we just need to get our feet wet, get into this system, start using a little bit more. and really just have it for a backup emergency.
Madam Chair, if I could. So,
Yes,
Mr.
Mr.
Moore,
Rich.
just for some additional context with the network in a box. So what it's going to do, it works on the AT&T FirstNet that the fire and police department already use, with additional failover communication modalities being BGAN, SATCOM, so forth, and then it has chips for each cellular service. So as an event happens and commercial telephone switch networks go down, this gives us additional communication modes on banded networks that we're already using. So it just gives us a bubble to keep communicating, pull data from networks, pull data from different places within the town, tapping into the fiber network, and then not captured on this, as well as the mapping and the communication fills about 4 or 5 squares on the response framework the district-wide security council is working for. So this is very much safety focused and response focused, and helps us get a lot closer to where we need to be ready to respond to any kind of incident that happens in the school system.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right. Mr. Cuna, go ahead. Thank
Well,
you.
again, first, let me thank
Oh,
Mr.
yes.
Brooks for that, because I didn't want to get all technical on you, so I let him do it for me. So thank you for the support on that. Let me think. So to continue with security conversation, next is MSMS, critical building system upgrades. Oh, thank you. I skipped that one. So let's go back to Francis Wyman generator replacement. I hope to believe this one is straightforward, but basically we have a more than 20-year-old generator that's there. We do perform our yearly maintenance. We do have a contract on it to keep it running as best as possible. Similar to a car, similar to anything with an engine, at some point you can only rebuild it so many times, and then trying to get parts for it become more difficult. At some point, to rebuild an engine like this, it's better to replace it for the long term, and Francis Wyman is a building that we have no plans to get rid of, for the proposed 20-year life of this generator.
So, and again, there was a comment, and we'll get to that later, by capital budget, that they wanted this generator to be a diesel generator as well, because it would last longer, and we would run into the same diesel storage issues that we had talked about with Fox Hill. So I think we're going to have a larger conversation about diesel storage at some point, and how we want our generators to, how we want our generators to function. So that's an upcoming, a little preview of where we're going to sort of talk about that. But we believe this would be enough funding for either a gas or a diesel generator, depending on what we're allowed to put on site.
Okay. I'd like to interject here, because Mr. Cuna was grilled by the Capital Budget Committee last week, and did a marvelous job explaining things. And I think in the years I've been on the school committee, you've really figured out ways to explain things and communicate, and even was able to explain things that weren't even in the writing part of it. So he kind of upped that, and I really appreciate it, because you are able to answer questions that are very detailed, but that answer what people are worried about and concerned about. So even though I'm not hoping to get all that detail tonight, I want to thank you and appreciate that you're able to do that, and that our materials for town meeting hopefully will be more accessible to people who aren't as familiar with the material as Mr. Cuna is. So thank you for all of that. Thank you. So we now can go on to Marshall Simons. Yes.
Right. So the next one is Marshall Simons, critical building system upgrades. I just need to double check my notes, so I'm telling you the correct information. So the biggest focus on this is going to be smoke arms that are not on the current doors. What smoke arms do is, if a door, let's say in the hallway, is propped open, and then it senses that there's a fire, or the fire alarm detects that there is a fire, it sets the doors to close. Now, obviously, if they're propped, which is something that not encouraged, not recommended by the fire department or our staff, it's tough to do. So by putting the smoke arms on, not only is it a safety thing, it actually prevents people from chalking the doors open, which is horrible in a fire situation, right? So what these, like I said, will do, fire comes, hopefully it never comes, it shuts the doors, and what that does is it actually traps smoke and fire into contained areas and doesn't really allow it to pass further down the hallway, which is instrumental in obviously saving staff, children, and definitely parts of the building from fire. Another thing, during one of our inspections, building code has changed, and it requires us to have a refrigerant monitor in the middle school. And particularly in the middle school is because we have a VRF chiller on the roof that has refrigerant in it, right? So because of the volume of refrigerant that we have, we're required to actually add that in there. So that's part of the request. The other thing too is because this building was done over multiple years in multiple phases, part as MSBA, part as prior to MSBA, and part done internally, we do have some systems. So we have door systems, fire alarm systems, security systems, heat systems, and so forth that don't talk to each other, right? And also aren't necessarily programmed to be the most efficient. What we're asking for and what we've quoted is to basically have a company come in and have these systems work to not only be more efficient, but to integrate better with each other. And again, that just provides a safer building and a more efficient building, which is really missing to be the complete middle school that it should be. So this is for $113,203.
Okay, any questions on that?
This
Ms.
question
Caserta?
applies because we have a few memorial Marshall Simons line items, things that didn't get touched in the renovation. Is there other like big sections of the building or categories that didn't get done, like that we may have to do in the future?
We've been tackling most of them over time. So let's say cameras, for example, we've upgraded them to be consistent with what's across the district. One of the ones that you're talking about tonight will be furniture, and those were because we had different needs for the classrooms that they're in at the time, and those classroom functions have changed. So that's why we'll be asking for additional furniture. We've upgraded some hardware on the roof, some HVAC systems, some controllers. So again, we've been tackling these a lot. Building code changes, plans changes, usage changes, of course. So I'm sure there's something that we will tackle in the future that will need to be upgraded. But anything that's a safety and security, anything that's functional, we've been tackling them as needed. And I think these requests right here hit the big numbers and the big targets.
Okay, my question was more around like I was surprised to hear that you didn't renovate bathrooms. Right? Like, is there any other thing we didn't? I get that we need to maintain the building. I was just curious, is there any big section that we also didn't renovate?
Well, I just want to clarify. So it's not that we didn't renovate any bathrooms, right? It's just that at some point during the project, it was decided that the bathrooms at that current time were fine. So now you have the original usage plus the additional 12 years of usage into them, right? So yes, they weren't renovated, but that's not every bathroom in the whole entire building. That's just some. So I think what you're looking at right here is for 6 bathrooms, and there's 24 bathrooms in the whole building. So small percentages is what I'm saying. Most things were tackled, but we are going to find things that need to be replaced over time just from wear and tear.
Dr. Conti, did you want to add to that? You got it. And Mr. Brooks?
Just pulling on that thread again, and I'm going to keep hitting the long-term capital plan. You know, are we ensuring that all these big rocks that are left are, you know, identified in that plan for the long-term capital projects?
I'm sure that I'm not, but I will try my best to, yes, and with all of your support and assistance, I think we can shape that document to look like we want it to look.
Thank you for raising that, yep. All right, so moving on to BHS.
So next one is BHS, fiber connection to Varsity Field, $43,599. From Varsity Field to the high school, there's a wireless connection. Great for what it does, but not super dependable. What we're looking to do is actually run and connect fiber, so a solid piece of fiber for a dedicated connection. We have internet on the field, we have controllers on the field, we have security on the field, we have security at the front entranceway as far as cameras going, and then we have the huddle on the field as well too for sporting and music events. So ultimately, it's a piece of technology that's growing that we're not keeping up with, And this is something that we actually can take advantage of some of the dark fiber that's already in the ground. Dark fiber is, briefly, let's say a company pulls 12 fibers just to save time instead of pulling just one, but they only tend to use 2, maybe 4, so that leaves the other fiber there. If we can connect under that, it's going to save us some distance, which is great. So while this is rather expensive, long-term and the life expectancy of this and what it brings us in value and security is definitely something needed.
Questions? Yes, Dr.
Again,
Conti.
capital budget asked the question, it's all underground with no trenching, because the fiber's already in the ground.
Well, there's no planned destruction of any hard surfaces or pavement.
Right.
There will be some area that we do have to disrupt ground to make some connections.
Yeah, they were worried about the driveway.
The driveway, yes.
Thank you.
Just one question.
Yes, Mr. Brooks?
So with the dark fiber too, that is making it a little future-proof because we're not utilizing all the strands in that bundle, correct?
Correct. Well, again, if you want to define future-proof as that, I think it's something that was future-proofed that we didn't take fully advantage of, that now we can take it fully advantage of, and in turn saving us a little bit of cost and still having some available dark fiber to us to use. Yeah.
All right. All set, Mr. Moran? Okay. Next.
So next, it says BHS, and it is electric forklift. Quite simply, we use a forklift to navigate materials and supplies through 360,000 square feet of this building. If it was simply an envelope, it would be easy to do, but moving anything from pallets to jugs of water to, any of the supplies that we get, requires the necessity of something a little bit more powerful, pushing them up and down the hills. Also, please understand that we use the high school as a main distribution for our deliveries, for all of our custodial and maintenance supplies, also for most of our kitchen supplies as well, get delivered here. We also maintain football fields, and we have to bring equipment out of the building into either trailers or onto the field. So ultimately, it may seem surprising that we would need something to move excess of 400, 500, 600 pounds, but that's something we do pretty regularly. We do have a current electric forklift, and I'm stressing electric because it will operate indoors. So we cannot have a gasoline one. We wouldn't want one anyways, just because, but this would be electric. But it also needs to fit through some of our doorways and some of our ceiling heights, but then also has to project to some of our higher ceiling heights in order for us to take full advantage of it. So there's some particulars that we need, which is driving the cost a little bit, but this is something that we expect to get many years of use out of, and definitely would change the way we do things without it.
Okay. Dr. Conti?
Again, the existing forklift is 150 years old.
Close.
Close.
Okay.
So more than 20-something.
More than 20-something years old. We can't get parts. We've gotten, this isn't a luxury. This is just a piece of equipment that's worn out that we need to replace. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Not quite 150.
Yeah. So if no questions,
All
I'll
right.
move on. Next is maintenance vehicle. Without trying to sound like a broken record, and I will change my whole tone once we get to town meeting, maintenance vehicles. We have 5 maintenance personnel. We have 1 maintenance vehicle. Again, we have 870,000 square feet of building, plus we maintain some of the athletic fields and some of the outside equipment as well, too. That being said, our staff is using their personal vehicles, which they do get reimbursed for, but quite frankly, it's just not efficient, right? I mean, people have lives at home as well, too, so they can't necessarily keep tools and equipment and sheets of plywood and so forth in their vehicles. So we lose a lot of time and efficiency of, oh, this person has the truck, or, oh, the equipment's over here. So it definitely changes the way, we plan things. Having a second vehicle definitely allows us to cover more square footage of our buildings and then literally just get equipment, supplies, and tools more places faster.
All right. And Mr. Brooks?
So is there any cost, like what's the cost offset? So now we're not using 4 employees' vehicles. What are we saving and, offsetting the cost of the purchase of this vehicle?
So There's a line item in my operations budget. I have to double check to make sure I'm telling you the right thing, but I think it's $3,200 for travel. So whether or not they hit that exactly every single year, or plus or minus, so $3,200 would be the cost of just maintenance vehicles reimbursement for mileage.
Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And moving on.
So next, I don't want to lump them together, but they're similar. So middle school bathrooms, and the next one after that is middle school locker rooms. The distinction between these two is one is focused strictly on bathrooms. So there are the 4 bathrooms that are in the A and B hallway, currently dedicated as boy and girl bathrooms, so they're multi-stall use. As Dr. Purchase and everyone else has mentioned before, that, you know, when you have 900+ students in and out of bathrooms all day long, like they do get abused. Our staff does a great job to maintain them, but they definitely are in need of a facelift and some new equipment, some new partitions and so forth. We also have 2 bathrooms that are down by the gym, which have not been updated, and 2 bathrooms in the cafeteria, which have not been updated. They're not up to code as far as ADA compliance. They are the intent of this is to actually redesign those to maximize them and make them ADA compliant. So we're looking to go to single stall bathrooms, ADA compliance, as I mentioned, and really just maximize the space and the usage of them, just because they're really tight. The ones in the cafeteria in particular, again, I'm not a designer, but if I was, I would not have put them like this. So reconfiguring them really would make them more efficient. When you have 300 kids at lunch trying to get in and out of a bathroom, again, you can expect a mess, or the line that's there and so forth. So really repurposing these to be more efficient is the intent of this project in particular. If I can move just right on to the locker room renovations. These were partially renovated in the MSBA project, and the reason I say partially is because, you know, you got to look at, there's an upstairs locker room that we typically call it the women's locker room, but then there's some facilities within inside of that. So the facilities inside of that, where the treadmills are now, had some upgrade done to it with floors and so forth, and some lights were replaced. We also did purchase some new lockers, but entirely the space was not completed during like the renovation. Downstairs, the same exact thing. Parts were, but as a full total install, was not. That being said, we're not using them as locker rooms anymore. I don't have the particular answer why, or definitive answer why, but ultimately, children go to the locker rooms less and go more to the gym or more to the activity as needed. So we're really not seeing the functionality of these large spaces. You know, talking with the staff over there and the administration in particular, repurposing these for teaching spaces, classroom spaces on the upstairs level, bringing the fitness center downstairs with the treadmills and so forth, repurposing the bathrooms that are in those to make them multi-use, or single use. Really makes the space a lot better for, again, instructional, and then separating where the fitness center is. So it really would just be a change in function, but a function that's better suited for today's needs.
All right. And I mean, I can think of reasons, I don't know for sure, of why kids aren't using locker rooms so much anymore. It used to be that kids would wear nice clothes to school and shoes, and now they'd have to change to go to gym, and they'd have to change their shoes to sneakers, and kids just wear stuff to school that they go to gym in. And I think it's logical that we see that the locker rooms aren't getting used as much. So I think this is a good project. All
Great,
right.
thanks.
Anyone else? All right, moving on.
Again, I'll take as much time as needed, but I'll speed up a little bit on these ones. Cafeteria tables for Fox Hill. It's been mentioned for a couple years now and pulled out of a couple of requests to replace the cafeteria tables. We know there's a Fox Hill project going on, so if these only get a few years out of them, we will definitely repurpose these, because we're buying matching folding, rolling, seat-included tables that we have at our other schools that are also aging, so we will definitely be able to repurpose these into our other 5 buildings.
Okay.
Mr. Brooks?
Madam Chair, so last time we had talked about this, we basically said we could realize a cost savings in the Fox Hill building by just repurposing them when we move into the new building. So, I mean, it kind of seems more useful to do it that way than just piecemeal them out to other schools.
Well, again, I think what you said is true, and that's an option that we will explore. I think at some point, as mentioned, if we need to value engineer anything in the Fox Hill project, and there's a potential cost savings there, that may be one place to look at. But I think it's definitely something that we have to look at once we're further into the project.
If I may add, it's my understanding that there's I don't know if it's called a line item, that MSBA gives us money for furniture in the new building, and that's therefore reimbursable, whereas this would not be. So there may be cost savings by doing it this way, so, and repurposing them to other schools. So, I mean, depending on what works best, I think this does make some sense.
Yeah, I think we're definitely open to exploring all options, but doesn't minimize the need for the tables currently.
Dr. Conti, did you have a, no? Okay, next.
So next is fencing replacement at Pine Glen. There's 180 feet of fencing in the front of the property along the teacher parking lot, which also doubles as a play area / 2 basketball nets. That loops down to the drop-off area for kindergarten and separates the grass from the parking lot. There is a current fence there. I do not know the age of it. It does have multiple repairs to it. It's limping along, and what this is looking to do is remove and replace the full 180 feet of fencing that's currently there with new fencing.
Capital budget asked us to look into whether some of the posts could be saved and for us to provide an option for a vinyl coated galvanized fence along with the galvanized fence. So we're going to explore those two options.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
All right, next.
Next one, again, I think we touched on, but specifically this is for furniture at MSMS. Really, this is just replacing furniture that doesn't fit the current needs, particularly in the C corridor where we have some older wood shop, metal fab, and tech ed spaces that were great at the time. They're not as great right now and definitely don't fit the academic or classroom needs. So we're really looking just to upgrade and replace those, benches and stools, and some portable tables, $132,515.
Okay. All right. And next?
So next, again, I told you all that I will try to understand this one more, but I'm going to pass it off tonight to either Dr. Conti or Dr. Chen. So this is curriculum.
Curriculum, so again, we were asked a capital budget, which is a valid question. Why isn't this in your operating budget? It's because it's work that is really outside of the operating budget. We are needing to do some curriculum reviews that haven't happened in many, many years, and we need a jump start, and capital budget is a good way for us to bring some outside people in. This doesn't preclude any of our operational costs. We still are buying consumables, but if we're going to do an in-depth look into literacy, math, and other things, we need an infusion of money to do that, and that's what the capital project is for. We have used capital money for curricular materials if we're adopting a math curriculum or something like that. So it's, again, it is something we're using, and it's something where we need a large amount of money to meet the urgency that was expressed tonight by several committee members.
Okay. Mr. Moran?
The backup material said the lifetime of this curriculum project was 3 years. I'm expecting that that's probably incorrect, and the curriculum would actually last a lot longer. So if it does say 3 years, as my memory seems to remind me, you might want to revise that, because 3 years seems like the money for the 3 years seems really expensive.
I think what we were saying is the expenditure is going to be, we're going to use the money over the next 3 years. Obviously, the curriculum, the training, the project would be built into our capacity moving forward.
No, understood. It's just the way that it was phrased on the backup material.
We'll look at that, so
yeah,
thank you.
Okay. All right. And next is the music room flooring.
Again, this is a project that you all have seen before. This is something that we originally asked town meeting and you all to support a $450,000 request to use concrete and steel and replace the flooring, make them level in both the band and the chorus room at the high school. While that was approved, thank you. Subsequently, it was returned back to the town in exchange for helping us participate in the BHS feasibility study. So while we are currently working on that, the needs have not gone away from the request from the music department here at the high school to look at those floorings. Some creative alternatives have been proposed, and what's in front of you tonight is basically a staging system made out of steel, tubing with a platform on top of it, similar to what's in our bridge room, but definitely more robust and definitely soundproof, or soundproofing has been applied to this structure. So being creative means that we could definitely fill in the floors, meet the needs of the building. Now, in the event also that by working on the high school project, if we were to move into any type of next phase and the music rooms were to be either repurposed or built differently, we would not have to throw this equipment away. This is definitely something that we can be used in either all of our other music rooms. They could be used in cafeterias, they could be used in gymnasiums. These get used at graduations, they get used at truck day. So platforms are a very versatile piece of equipment that we could use, but ultimately these are not something that would be moved temporarily. They would be semi-permanent in place in both of the two music and chorus rooms, and in the event of, it's definitely something that we could repurpose.
Comments? No. I would just add, and in the meantime, as long as they're in the music room and the chorus room, then now we would have wheelchair accessible spaces for our students, and I think that's an important aspect as well.
And I did just want to add, because we did take a walk earlier, so when you walk into the rooms, there is a section of the room that is accessible, right? Is the whole entire room accessible? No. What this looks to do is take the depressions that are in the room that step down and make the whole entire room floor, which now changes the way the room acts, the way that the teachers teach, the way that the children learn, but also the function of the room. Instead of having a forward-facing tiered platform for teaching, you have a universal classroom, which most people are accustomed to.
Bob did give us a tour. I just wanted to see the two rooms, and I appreciate the need, and I do think that this reusable method is a nice compromise. So.
All right, moving on.
Yep. The next one, which is going to be the last one in our allotment, and then we'll talk about the other two, is the carpet replacement. I know that this one has been met with a little bit of resistance. I'm going to assume mostly due to not knowing next steps of this building during the feasibility study. So that being said is that in every other asset, we continue to maintain our buildings. If something can be done within our operating budget, we do. A building this size, 370,000 square feet, not all of that is carpet. But that being said is that when we do need to replace a carpet in a particular area, even doing one small office, would cost us $1,000, right? Now, time and materials are definitely important to us. So the reason why we're asking for is 10,000 square feet. Not only can we address it, but in similar requests, what we've done is we phase these projects throughout the year and maybe even into the future year. So then that way, we can plan this a little bit better to make sure that we can get the people who are in the offices out on a timely manner. If it's a classroom, same exact thing. Again, do I want to say that these are 100% all safety and hazard? No, they're not. No, they're not, right? But ultimately is that... But
some of them are safety and hazard issues.
Some of them definitely are safety and hazards. And again, that's going to be questionable depending on who looks at it, right? I mean, is everybody going to trip over a 1 foot rip in a carpet? No, they're not. The thing is that 1 foot carpet is the sign of everything else that's happening in the 20 feet next to it, right? The wear down paths, the common areas, that's where we're starting to see. And that means that denying this today means that I'm paying for it out of operating budget tomorrow and so forth. So I'm really just looking at the needs of the building and seeing that we do have a lot of needs, and over the next 6 months, there's more needs that are coming up. So I'm just anticipating that ask.
Yeah, and our tendency is to oversell this, and I don't think we should. We're years away from making a decision. Kids treat spaces better that are well maintained. We're going to have to put money into this building before any decision is made, before there's a renovation, before there's a new building. I know $100,000 is a lot of money, but for, again, a building this size, it's really not. So I honestly think that people are sort of concerned we're going to put a $100,000 new carpet down and then tear it up the next year. That's just not the case. And we're going to have to replace some things in this building just to keep it functioning until we decide what to do with it. So again, a low priority for us, but still important. And I'm not going to, again, I don't think we need to over-explain that we need to replace carpets in a high school that has 1,000 teenagers running around. So that's what I'd say.
All right, so those are the capital warrant articles for the school department, and then there's the 2 additional warrants.
As Bob said, the 2 additional ones are really community needs. The community custodial we are stewards of. That's for groups that use the buildings when the buildings aren't normally staffed. So for the custodians can do that. Our obviously use of that fund over COVID was greatly diminished. We didn't need to ask for that money. We're asking for a replacement of that money now that the buildings are becoming more active. And again, we are just basically stewards of that. If groups want us to add time or change the dollar amount, town meeting has every ability to do that. So you actually don't even control the amount. We sort of estimate it. But if there's a new community group in town that is estimating they need building time, they could go to town meeting, ask. That number would change. And again, we just basically execute the warrant. You guys are projecting that this is enough. If there's a group that doesn't use all their hours, those hours can be allotted to potentially another group, so we don't ever shortchange someone if we have money in that account. So again, it's usually a pretty straightforward 5-minute explanation and moves forward. The field renovation is...
Before you move to the next one, for people who are relatively new, I don't remember how many years ago we revisited, because we have a policy about which groups are able to use the community custodial monies and the time in the building. So we did revisit that a couple of years ago, and that's something we could always revisit, but I don't feel the need to. But this is, we have something in place, and this is the way to fund it.
So
thank you.
Yep. And so the last thing, again, is a community need. It's on a school property. We are sort of hosting it. It's part of the field. The district-wide field study that was done 2 or 3 years ago, the first priority was the baseball field. Again, we get lots of parents groups saying, this is the worst field, blah, 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 you have to fix it, and then that's why we did the field study. This was the second priority. It's really an impressive project. It takes the grass field behind the middle school turf field and creates basically 2 soccer fields. And then there's money to upgrade the existing turf field at the middle school, which is now around 10 years old, needing to be replaced, and resurfaces the track. Again, investing in these facilities allows them to maintain their lives. If we don't resurface the track or respray the track, then we're going to have to replace the entire track at some point. So you have to spend money to maintain these facilities. They get a tremendous amount of use. This would also provide lights for that area and allow handicap accessibility from the building down to the fields. It would open up some parking behind the building. And one of the Park and Rec comments, Mr. Brooks, you were there, was the lateness of youth programs, like having access. And what Mr. Hart said, who was our athletic director, who does our scheduling, if he can schedule games that run concurrently, varsity and JV, which this facility would allow, then that means our teams get off the fields much sooner, and then youth programs have access to the fields much earlier. So again, this would be a great facility. Park and Rec unanimously supported it. I would envision, obviously, this being a joint presentation at town meeting where Park and Rec and the school department would present together. This is obviously a large amount of money. The town would need to figure out whether it's free cash, borrowed, or however that we would pay for it. But I do think it's, in terms of use per expense, the amount of kids that I see using sort of varsity field in the middle school in these fields, I think it would be a great benefit to the town. So, and it is part of a system. It's not something we're doing randomly. It is a study that we've done, and I think there's been a lot of work that has gone into that. And so we will have folks there who have done the design and study available to answer questions for folks. We've asked for some renderings so we can have those available for town meeting. So all we're asking for you tonight is to vote with the Park and Rec Committee to support the project so we can move forward jointly.
These have to all be individual motions?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we approve the... I move that we approve the Pine Glen Air Conditioning Funding Part 2 project in the amount of $322,416.
Second.
$1,000.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the chair votes aye.
I move that we approve the Burlington High School HVAC repairs as presented in the amount of $261,800.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the chair votes aye, that's 500.
I move we approve the Burlington High School project retube repair in the amount of $150,579.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, chair votes aye, 500.
I move that we approve the district project security and communication in the amount of $82,390.
Second.
Okay, we got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, and that's 500. And I'm really glad nobody's remote tonight.
I move we approve the Francis Wyman generator replacement as presented in $95,068.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move that we approve the Marshall Simons Critical Building Systems upgrades as presented in the amount of $113,203.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the Burlington High School fiber connection to Varsity Field project as proposed in the amount of $43,599.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, that's 500.
I move we approve the Burlington High School electric forklift in the amount of $50,160.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the district project maintenance vehicle in the amount of $65,890.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the Marshall Simons bathrooms project in the amount of $358,574.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the Marshall Simons locker room renovations in the amount of $288,840.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the Fox Hill cafeteria tables in the amount of $55,473.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the Pine Glen fencing replacement project in the amount of $25,025.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the Marshall Simons furniture replacement project in the amount of $132,515.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the district project for curriculum in the amount of $245,350.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye.
I move we
500.
approve the Burlington High School music room flooring project in the amount of $192,500.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 500.
I move we approve the Burlington High School carpet replacement project in the amount of $109,577.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay.
The chair votes aye. The motion passes 3-2-0.
I move we approve the district-wide community custodial, it's not really a project, amount, in the amount of $51,611.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The chair votes aye, 5-0-0.
I move we approve the Marshall Simons Field renovation in the amount of $6,720,000.
Second.
I would like to just add here before we vote that when it's presented at town meeting, I think it's important to give the context that there was a master plan done of all the fields, that this is the next priority, and it is a community project, and that's why it's being brought this way. So, because there will be lots of people who didn't know there was a master plan, and I just want to be sure that we introduce it that way. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes aye, 5-0-0. Who seconded?
The
Ms. Massardo and Mr. Brooks voted no on the other one?
No, yeah.
No?
Carpet,
On the
not the
carpet.
field.
On the carpet, yes, just the carpet. Yep. Okay. And these are, what we just voted are voting to forward these warrant articles to the select board to be sent to town meeting. Is that accurate? Dr. Conti, is that what we just did? Okay. I would entertain a motion. Is there any further business before the committee?
No, ma'am, there's no need for executive session.
Okay. Thank you. And
I move we adjourn.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are, chair votes aye. We are adjourned.
Don't let the door.